live from the Drew Estate Cigar Studio in Boston, Massachusetts. Welcome to the Spare Notes series with your hosts, Matt Tabacco and William Cooper.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Spare Notes series. My name is Matt Tabacco from SmokingTobacco.com, and I am joined once again by my very good friend, Mr. William Cooper from Indian Trail, North Carolina. And I am live once again in the Drew Estate Cigar Studios, and I am already in the process of smoking a cigar tonight. I started right before the show, and then I'm going to move on to something else. But I am smoking Sans Band, since I have gotten to that point, a Joya de Nicaragua, numero uno, and just really enjoying the cigar. Coop, what are you about to light up over there? I know you got something interesting.
Yeah, I pulled out a Romeo Julieta Reserve, and it's their version of a Rare Corojo, the Rare Corojo 2006. This was a limited edition cigar about 3 or 4 years ago that actually does use a Corojo leaf on their Rare Corojo.
Huh.
I've had these sitting in the humidor for a while. I think Raphael and Odell gave me these when I visited the office. And like I said, I've kind of pulled these out from time to time, and I'm going to give it a shot, and then I'll follow it up if I have time with the Oliva Serie V Milanio Figurado.
You know what's funny, and I mentioned to you, I started to get into this point before we started the show, and then I stopped myself because I wanted to have the discussion on the air.
Yep.
You know, it's funny. We were talking about some of the Romeo stuff that we've enjoyed, and there's actually some really good ones. Some of the other stuff that Altadas has going on right now, even some of the general stuff. There's some great cigars that come out, and I was about to say it, and I stopped, but you knew exactly where I was going with it. It's interesting that, a lot of times, and I'm not saying this is everybody. I think this is like a small percentage of people. And I'll admit, like many, many years ago, when I first started smoking cigars, well, maybe not right when I first started, but once I was smoking long enough that I kind of had an idea of like who some of the companies were. I feel like there's a stigma sometimes where it's like you hear about like the big brands or like Romeo or stuff like that, and I think there's a small percentage of people who kind of go like, oh well, I'm not smoking that because it's like the big name brand people, they don't make great cigars. I smoke better cigars from the smaller brands, and that's not necessarily true. A lot of the big companies are making some great cigars. Altadis USA is making some great stuff, and Romeo, H. Upman, that H. Upman Barber Pole, we were talking about that before the show. I think that's a great cigar. Some of the stuff that they got going on at General, especially anything Justin Andrews has put his hands on, has been really good too. Drew Estate's Drew Estate. They've always kind of had that cult following, and then Davidoff's kind of in their own universe with what they got going on. But specifically with like General and Altadis, like for those people out there who kind of like, oh, I only smoke boutique stuff, like I don't smoke the big name guys. I mean, if you haven't really tried a lot of it, like if you've had one or two things, like really explore it, because I'm telling you, like they got some great stuff that they've been putting out the last couple of years, and it's been really enjoyable.
Yeah, I agree, Matt. So let's just I'll give you a case example here. So let's take two boutique companies. Southern Drawer,
Yeah.
right, is one,
Mm-hmm.
and Enrique Sanchez's 1502 cigars.
Okay. Yep.
So Southern Drawer makes their stuff at AJ Fernandez. 1502 makes most of their stuff at Plasencia.
Mm-hmm.
Altadis, in recent years, has basically moved their Nicaragua. They've been making Nicaraguan-made cigars out of Plasencia and AJ. And the funny thing is, I see everyone heap love on Southern Drawer and 1502, and I'm not saying they don't deserve it, right? But for some reason, their 1502 and Southern Drawer are doing it right, but Altadis is doing it wrong. I don't see that, right? And I think people are sometimes judging the book by its cover here in this case. So
I think so too.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think with Raphael, and I've said this, I think Raphael has done one of the best jobs in the industry over the past few years with Altadis. He is really connected, I think, with what people are looking for. And I really love especially what he's done with the Romeo Julieta line, because he has, remember like about 10 years ago, they were coming out with these Romeo cigars and, with the Romeo packaging. And it seemed to work for a while, but then it seemed to run out of gas. I think people just got tired of it. But what Raphael's done is he's extended some lines like Reserva Real, coming out with Nicaraguan, the 1875 lines. And I think has really done a good job at kind of keeping the DNA of these cigars. But at the same time, getting creative with some of the stuff doing. So I agree 100%. This is not something that, people should really be giving these cigars a chance. I'm not saying they're all going to be home runs, but I think they deserve a very fair chance.
I agree. And look, that's not to say that, and again, remember when I say this is subjective to people individually because everyone's palate is different. But, sorry, I had a piece of tobacco in my mouth. Yeah, sometimes there's cigars that don't really impress, but I feel like, almost every brand at one point or another makes a cigar that maybe isn't well received by the majority, right? And that happens. That's part of the game. I mean, it's the same with any other kind of product that's like that. Sometimes things come along and, it's not well received. It doesn't perform well. It doesn't get good ratings and reviews, and it happens. And that's not to say that it was necessarily poorly made, although that can happen. I mean, I'm not going to pretend like it doesn't. I mean, in all fairness, that sometimes things come out that are not well made or they weren't blended really well, and it happens. But again, the stigma. Don't follow the stigma on stuff. Always, try a lot of stuff from a lot of different brands. Especially, and this is kind of goes into a kind of a tangent of an alternate discussion that's somewhat related, but I guess I can build off of this. We always talk about, like, especially in the old days, right? And I'm not picking on you, but I mean, obviously you're all older than me. You've been smoking longer than me. I don't know if I don't remember this necessarily because I've only been smoking, since, in the last, the middle of the last decade. But like you were around for like the 90s when the boom happened, right?
But I wasn't smoking actively back then. Yeah.
When did you really start actively smoking?
I was like, I would say 2006. And what I mean is I was an occasional smoker back in the 90s. But I did follow what was going on. I did follow what was going on about this. Yeah.
Right, but you were around and you knew enough to know that back then, especially, not that it doesn't happen anymore, but especially back then, you had that the brand loyal smokers where if, for example, if you smoked, Diamond Crown, that's what you smoked. Someone could come up to me and be like, there's these new cigars from Perdomo. I don't want to hear it. I smoke Diamond Crown. I don't smoke anything else. And, I feel like obviously a lot of that culture has changed. I mean, people are more, open to trying new stuff now. You don't have as many of those people. But I would say, in my opinion, I think there's people out there who are not brand loyal to like one brand, one cigar. I think that there's a good population nowadays that's loyal to like a dozen brands, and then they don't smoke anything else, or they very rarely venture out. But one thing about being in the media, especially for us, and I know you can relate to this, is I don't want to use the word forced because I don't think that's the right adjective, but we're in a position where we kind of have to try everything that comes out that we can get our hands on because that's just kind of what we do. And, obviously you want to be able to try as much as you can so you can talk about as much as you can. You can know about everything that's out there. And the one thing about that, perspective is you do have the opportunity to smoke through a lot of different things. And I don't feel like as many people as one might think venture out as much as a lot of the media guys do. Not saying that nobody does, but I think there's a lot of consumers are smoking a lot of different shit nowadays. That's not what I'm saying. But I still think that there's a large majority out there who maybe went from being brand loyal to one specific brand or one specific cigar from one specific brand, maybe two, to maybe more, but just not as much. And I feel like some of those people do themselves a disservice because there's some great stuff out there. I can't tell you how many times I've had a cigar, and Coop, I know you can say this too, where you kind of go into something being like, I'm going to try it, being open-minded, but I don't know. I don't know, like I don't normally like stuff from this company, or I don't usually like stuff from this factory, or whatever it is. And then you smoke it and you're like, wow, that really surprised me. And then you end up buying more of those because you're like, you know what, I actually really enjoy that. And it's not something I'd normally buy from like that brand or factory or
Yep.
whatever. But now I am because I like it. And you mentioned the judging the book by its cover, and I think that still goes on to some extent today. And look, people are going to do what they want to do, and I'm not here to tell you what you're doing is wrong because it's not. Whatever you do for you it's how it is,
Yep.
and I don't believe
Mhm.
it is wrong. But, for some of those people who are a little more closed-minded, try to explore a little more because I'm telling
Yeah.
you, there's some surprises out there.
I'll never forget. There's a couple of things. Such good points on that. What you just said. I remember, my dad and I walked in. He came with me into a cigar store once, and you get one of those like trays, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm picking up, and I remember we were in Nat Sherman in New York, and I picked up some Nat Shermans. I think I picked up some Casadas, and a couple of other things. I have about 8 or 9 cigars, and he turns to me and he's like, "What the fuck you doing?" And I'm like, "Who says that to me?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Picking up cigars." He goes, "Can't you decide what the fuck you want?" And he didn't quite understand that this is a guy who smoked Carlton cigarettes for 50 years, the
Right.
same cigarette for 50 years, right?
Yeah.
And he and he didn't even understand because his father would smoke Optimo as the brand. The Optimo cigars is what he would smoke, right? So he had a brand, right? And then I kind of explained to him how it's different, it's handmade. Now it's kind of like the wine thing. My dad just totally didn't understand that piece, right? So you're right. In the media, we tend to try to go cast the net wide. I mean, we do. Now, when it comes to reviewing cigars, that's where I've had to learn a few lessons, okay? So I've learned that basically web traffic is going to come from 20%. 80% of your web traffic is going to come from 20% of your brands. That's just reality. It doesn't mean I'm not going to smoke the other stuff, and maybe I'll talk about it on a podcast or something. But what I've learned is, as far as keeping the business of Cigar Coop and keeping traffic, I have to go where the audience is with that a lot of times, right? So sometimes it may seem like I'm not. I may have. There's, like I said, 20% of my companies, 20% of the companies are what I'm covering in reviews, but it is wider. I just want, but again, I have to kind of keep the lights on, so to speak. So
Yeah.
that's the other side of the coin.
Yeah, I mean, I think so, and I've seen it too. Like you go into shops, well, first of all, actually, let me back up because you talk about cigarettes, right? And we're always kind of trying to differentiate ourselves from other tobacco products, OTP,
Yeah.
especially cigarettes, right? And I feel like with cigarettes, it's easier to be brand loyal because and I look, I know that there's people who are going to be like totally disagreeing. And I'm not saying it's 100%, but what I'm saying is, with cigarettes, like I don't smoke cigarettes, I never have, so like I'm not speaking from that experience, but I know enough about them to know. It's easier because it more or less, okay, there it is, more or less, not 100%. Cigarettes are kind of the same, and it's a different kind of smoking experience, and you smoke cigarettes for different reasons, and people don't smoke cigarettes. I think this is a safe bet to say. People don't smoke cigarettes for the enjoyment of the game and to enjoy the flavors of all the different kinds of tobacco.
No.
People smoke cigarettes because they need a rush of nicotine, they need a smoke, and it's a couple minutes and it's over and they move on.
And there's a comfort zone. There's a comfort zone of what's being delivered, and that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's it. There's nothing more. It's nothing. There's nothing complicated about smoking a cigarette. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's pretty safe to say. So it's like when people smoke, and look, this is one that everyone will agree with. How many people out there who smoke cigarettes? Marlboro Reds. That's what they smoke. It's the #1 cigarette in the world for the most part. Yeah. Marlboro Reds, and I feel like it's easier to be brand loyal like that than it is to be brand loyal to a cigar because cigars are all so very different. This is kind of like,
there's more inconsistency you're gonna get with that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was interesting because I remember our friend, we both know this guy, Fred Rui.
Oh yeah.
Now Fred Rui made a great point to me in an interview years ago, and this is when he had Nomad, and he said, what he figured out was, he said, there's not people who are loyal to one of my cigars. They're not blend loyal, but they're brand loyal to me. and he figured that out earlier on, and that was his. And he was right. I mean, I think he was right. Nomad. It wasn't like that. There was that one person buying the Nomad C276 cigar. It was that person who was continually supporting what Nomad was doing, and I think that's why it worked so well. And the other thing I'll say is you talk about customer loyalty, right? I think the company, and I know he's out here listening, but I'm not just trying to stroke it. The company has done the best job in probably the last 5 years of building up a loyalty program. You got to look at McAuliffe, what they've done. From the ground up, they built that program, right?
Yeah.
And I watch that community every day, that ambassador community. That's an active community. There are people who are brand loyal in that community. And, they're, whether, you see when they just announced their new line extensions this week. People are excited about those types of things. So that's when I see, when you see something like that, that's when I know you've kind of connected with something with that. And like I said, cigarettes don't have – I guess cigarettes were never given that opportunity to have like a Marlboro community. I think they could have if they were allowed to. They were never afforded that option, unfortunately. Just the way the laws are set up. Cigars have been luckier in that respect.
That's true.
Yeah.
I think what you said is true, and I also think that what I said before also kind of goes hand in hand with
Yeah.
too. Is it's a different thing. Like with a cigarette smoker, I mean, at the end of the day, you might only buy Marlboro Reds, but if you're out and you need a cigarette, and someone's like, "Well, I got fucking give me another one, like a Camel, not a Camel Crush, just like a regular Camel, or an L&M, Winston, any of the other brands, right? Lucky Strike if you're old school like that and you think you're like hip, and hey, I have these." They're gonna be like, all right, I'll bum a cigarette, and they're gonna move on with their day, and it's not gonna But there's cigar people out there who be like, hey, I got this, I got a cigar from Drew Estate, Oh no, I only smoke like LFD. I only smoke LFD. I can't have it. I'll wait and get an LFD. And there's people like that, and it's like,
yeah.
I get it to an extent, but it's like, don't do yourself a disservice. There's a lot of good stuff out there. I mean, there's so many different options when it comes to blends. You know what I mean? It's like
I definitely agree with you on that too. I think that's very important to say. What's amazing is I go look at my dad's life, and I remember when he switched from, I think it was Pall Mall to his brand Carlton. I think this was like 1972, right before my sister was born, and this was before my sister was born. And he kept that brand for 50 years. I mean, every day would smoke the same brand. I don't even drink Diet Coke every day, okay?
Yeah.
And this is a guy. So
I know. I was going to say,
I've
not to cut you off. Finish your thing,
No.
But I just want to say, that's right. I've seen you cheat on Diet Coke with Pepsi, and that's
sure.
sin.
But there's days I don't even have soda, right? But yeah, I have cheated on it, exactly. But again, this is so. I mean, I'm blown away. Look, I love cigars. There's no way I'm smoking the same cigar every day for 1 year, okay?
Yeah.
Maybe a brand. I see people, they do like there's the Espinosa 365 groups, and I think Saka's got one too. But again, they're brand loyalty groups. They're not like someone smoking the same. I'll tell you, I think on our team, on the Coop team, we have one person who is a blend loyal guy, and that's Aaron Nielsen, who smokes the High Clare Castle every day.
Really?
Now he smokes other stuff, but every day I mean, this is a true guy. He's got a true rotation cigar. He buys several boxes a month, and he has at least one of those High Clare Castles a day. I've seen it at trade shows and stuff. He brings them, so he is an exception, is what I'll say to that. But he'll try. He loves like chasing down other stuff too. So it's not like he just limits himself to that. But he does have a cigar he really enjoys, and will smoke on a consistent, regular basis. And that's an anomaly we have. I don't think I can name anyone else in the media who does that.
I tried going real
yeah.
I don't want to say brand loyal, but yeah, like brand loyal. There's been several times where I'll go to the cabinet and I'll look at all the boxes, and I'll find out, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna grab this box, and I'm just gonna smoke this box till it's empty. And I get probably 5 sticks in, and I'm like, I wanted something else. I'm already sick of it. Not that I don't like the cigar anymore. But I'm just I just want something different now. I don't know how people could just smoke the same cigar over and over again, daily. Because to me, I'm like, I need the variety in my life. I don't know. But that's me. And that's why I said it's also subjective. It's not wrong if you do.
There's no wrong answer on that.
I don't know. I just think it's more fun to like just smoke different stuff all the time. I don't know. I also have ADD, so I get sick of everything very quickly. So I'm also kind of like on an island of my own, so to speak. But
Yeah, I mean, I go, yeah, and it's interesting because today's actually a review break day for me, right?
yeah.
I didn't smoke anything for review today, and this is a rare time I'm picking something up. And we recorded Jukebox earlier, and I was smoking a Davidoff Winston Churchill late hour, and now I'm smoking it. And this is a rarity where when I do these shows, I actually don't review something on the air, but this is an actual day where I've been able to enjoy cigars for it and not having to worry about taking notes or anything about something.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not just specific to tobacco. I mean, I know. Yay, Bear's here with us. Pats, he's here. And it's funny. I know people who drink wine who like I only drink California Reds.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay. Now, granted, that's a little bit more of a broader thing because that's not winery specific. It's just, but it's like it's very similar though. There's so many different wines out there. I mean, even if you're just loyal to California Reds, I mean, you're talking like hundreds of different blends of wine. But I mean, I don't know. It's just like I love trying wines from different regions. I like to drink a lot of California Reds. I like to drink Italian Reds. I like to drink French Reds. I got really into French Reds a couple years ago. Spanish Reds is something that like I want to get into next, where I really explore a lot of Spanish wine. So it's like, I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I love the variety. And
Sure.
Not that it's wrong though if you're not. I mean, I just hope that people know, like, hey, like, don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone once in a while. You might find something new. You're like, oh, you know what? I love the Spanish Red now. I used to only drink California Reds, and now, oh man, I found a couple of Spanish Reds, and I'm like, damn, these are way better. I mean, it's just, spice it up. That's all.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I mean, like I said, wines are a good example. Coffees are a good example of things like that.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's kind of interesting because when people, like I said, the thing going back with my dad, he just didn't understand. He never understood what I did for a long time. But I remember that was the moment he had where he just was like he looked at these as big cigarettes. He really did. He didn't. Yes, he smoked cigars, but he didn't. In his mind, they were one and the same.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was kind of interesting.
Do you think that's a generational thing?
Yeah, I do, because again, his dad, like when the machine maids came. Like my dad grew up in the age of when the machine-made cigars were very big.
Right.
His dad was smoking Optimos every day, which are those machine-made cigars.
Yeah.
So I think it definitely was a generational thing for sure, because the handmade thing really didn't. I think the handmade revolution came much later than that. I think it wasn't. It never went away, but I think really in the '90s is when that just exploded. So, and by then, his dad had long been gone, and it was a different world by then.
Jay Davis is really brand loyal, and he's very brand loyal to Colombian cocaine specifically.
Cocaine Cowboys.
That's right. Yeah, I mean,
Cocaine Cowboys out of Dallas, right?
It's funny. I saw someone share a meme today, and it was the picture of Dak Prescott, and it was like, well, let's just get this out of the way now. And it was like, Dallas Cowboys eliminated from the playoffs. I was like, damn. Some of these people are just ruthless.
I got to say this about the Cowboy fans. They'll call out their team when they suck, though. I'll just say that. They don't hide, and they don't hide any time of the year. So I'll give them, I hate the Cowboys with every fiber of my being. But I will never knock a Cowboy fan, because I do believe they really they stick with their team in a lot of cases. But they've learned to suck it up over the years. Let's put it like that.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'd like to knock the Dallas Cowboys as much as every other non-Dallas Cowboys fan, but I mean, I wait till the season starts. I wait for like week 1 or 2, and then I kind of get into it. I mean, the full training camp hasn't even started yet.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've seen I've sat through 6 horrendous years with the Giants. I've always kept an eye on the Jets because growing up in New York, so I've seen it all. You gotta be careful about throwing things into glass houses. Let's put stones into glass houses. Is what I'll just say.
Did you ever see the Two Bills documentary on ESPN?
Yes.
Do you remember when they like walk them through, and they go upstairs to like the Hall of Fame wherever they have all the trophies and everything, and they're standing there, and Belichick says to Parcells, he goes, "Oh, there's our two right there." Oh yeah, yeah. And then Belichick goes, "This is the two we gave him." Like even for me, it's kind of funny. It's just well, there's the two we gave him.
Yeah,
that was pretty funny. I'll give you that. I can have
right.
some humor on those two losses with you on that aspect.
Absolutely.
I'm like, that was funny.
Absolutely.
Which, by the way, speaking of football and Patriots and Belichick, the NFL schedule was released this week, and the Patriots have announced that week one, or opening night, well, not week one, I think they week one on the road, but the home opener at Gillette, right, will be Tom Brady night, and Tom is going to come back, and they're going to celebrate him, and I'm really glad, because I don't know why, I kind of felt like I had this feeling like Tom like wasn't going to do anything with the Patriots. I had that feeling, even though I'm like, I don't know, I felt like maybe he just felt like he didn't need to go back and do anything with them for a little bit, but I'm glad to see he is, because I mean,
it's the right thing to do.
he had a couple years
parties.
with the Bucks. I know maybe behind closed doors it didn't end well, but like, I mean, the Patriots is what people are going to remember him for,
I was a little surprised they didn't let him retire as a Patriot.
I think
So
they I think they wanted him to. I don't think he did.
I don't think he did, because there's for folks that don't know, there's kind of like this ceremonial thing where you sign a one-day contract to retire with the team, and the guy who's most famous for doing it was Joe Montana. He went to the Chiefs for a couple of years, and then he signed a one-day contract with the 49ers to retire as a 49er.
It happens
kind
in
of
baseball.
A silly thing.
Nomar did it with the Red Sox.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Nomar did it with the Red Sox.
Yeah.
It's kind of a silly thing, but it's kind of a cool thing. So, look, I think this is a good – with all the Brady bashing I've done over the years, this is the right thing to do. This is absolutely – and I think it's a great way to open the season. And I give credit to Mr. Kraft, who I think is a great owner, by the way. Mm-hmm. And he has contributed so far and beyond to the – Patriots are one thing, but this is a guy – remember, people forget this is a guy who saved the NFL season one year with the labor negotiations. Single-handed – with his wife dying. And he got involved to try to save that. It could have been a mess, by the way. So he always will have my respect on that.
I think, like your team loyalty aside, when you look at the game, you look at the business part of it. Because remember, at the end of the day, professional sports, it's entertainment and it's business. It's, as a fan, like, yeah, it's cool. But at the end of the day, like, everyone involved in the professional leagues, people who own teams, the players, it is a business. I know that people will argue it's different than when we go to work and whatever, but when you boil it down on paper, I mean, professional sports, I mean, it's a bigger scale and there's a lot more money. Yes, I know it's different, but it boils down to the same thing. It's a job, it's a business. They're there to make money, Kraft bought the Patriots and the stadium. He bought all of it for $174 million back in the 90s. The Patriots organization today is worth, I think it's like $5 or $6 billion.
Oh, it's easily in the billions, yeah.
You have to give him credit for that. I mean, he's guy had a little incident that wasn't so great a couple years ago.
Everyone makes a mistake. But everyone makes mistakes, and he shouldn't be. I believe in second chances. He made a mistake. We had fun making fun of him over that mistake.
Look, he's a lonely old guy. He just wanted to get a little attention, okay?
Yeah.
Good look.
Yeah. I'm not
kill anybody.
My thing is, yeah. And look, and this is gonna be this is gonna be a very unpopular thing to say, okay? But you got to give a lot of credit, and I know he's hated Roger Goodell. Roger Goodell has built this thing into an absolute machine. With the contracts he's negotiated with the networks and stuff like that, I think now he has seen the light as far as I think now the NFL. Look, the NFL could say they're not gambling, but look, when fantasy football came, no one turned an eye on it, right? And fantasy football, as much as I'm not a fan of it anymore, I don't play it anymore, but you can't deny what it's done for the sport. I mean,
and now that sports betting is being legalized in more states outside of just Nevada, it gives people more of an interest in the game. They have something involved in it. I think sports betting, responsible sports betting, is good for the game because it'll bring more attention to the game because people feel like they have something involved in it, and ergo it brings people in. So I think it's great. And I will say, while I don't think Goodell is the best commissioner of all time, I would say when you put him up against the four commissioners of the leagues, I think that he's definitely not the worst. I think me and you probably agree on who is the worst out of the four.
Yeah, I think we all agree who the worst is.
I think we all know
Manfred.
who it is, and I think he needs to go. But Adam Silver's done a decent job with the NBA. I mean,
done a great job. I think
he's not perfect. No one's perfect, but he's done a good job.
No.
Goodell has made some mistakes, but in the NFL, and believe me, there's things about the NFL that I disagree with. I think they should change. I'm not going to get into all that, but I don't agree with some of the stuff. But the league's still going. The NBA, I think the game isn't what it was 20 years ago, which is disappointing, and it's why I don't watch it as much. But the NBA is still successful. The NHL, man, the NHL. What can I say?
I mean, Bettman's made some mistakes too with the NHL. Let's be clear. He has. I mean, he kept them out for a whole year, and I don't think that should be. He should be given a check for that. But and he definitely brought a lot of hockey to the South part of the U.S. I mean, that's a lot of him unfortunately, at the expense of Canada. So
yeah.
But I'll say he's made some very good decisions to keep that league financially solvent, which is good. You're right. Adam Silver, I think, has done. The one thing I like about what Adam Silver did is the playing concept. I think was genius. I think it kind of gave the NFL and the NBA a little life with some of those bubble teams getting in, and it kind of gives you a reason for this. Kind of gives you a reason to kind of get into the playoffs. I think that whole playing concept is cool. So I think they've done a good job with that.
If you told me back in November, December that the Lakers would be where they are now, I would have laughed at you.
Oh, and the Lakers and the Heat.
Yeah,
look,
and the Heat.
I mean, but I did think the Lakers were red hot going into the playoffs this year and dangerous. The way they were, because as long as they have D'Angelo Russell and Anthony Davis playing well with LeBron, that's a dangerous combination. But they're inconsistent, those two guys with LeBron. So, but yeah, I mean, if you told me people were talking about the Lakers possibly getting a lottery pick, I mean, that's what this was being talked about. Darvin Ham has done a tremendous job coaching that team this year. And look, I know people hate LeBron. You can't take away from what LeBron has done for that team this year. You can't. I don't like LeBron personally. Okay?
I don't either.
But the guy, look, the guy.
He's not Jordan.
The guy. That's a dopey argument, right? Because it's different eras, right? He's the best player of our era right now.
Of the era, maybe, but all time. No.
But it's Jordan. And I hear this Jordan thing all the time. How come no one says Bill Russell or Kareem? How come Jordan has never put up against Bill Russell or Kareem?
You really want to get into this tonight?
Not really. But I think Jordan is a great player and deserves his place absolutely on Mount Rushmore. So there's no argument. He's a Mount Rushmore player.
Russell is too. Oh yeah.
Russell is
Kareem,
too, and Kareem, and then that fourth one. I don't think LeBron. I think LeBron. You can make an argument. But I think there's a lot of other guys you can make an argument for. That's the fourth one's the tough one, I think.
Larry and Magic.
Yeah. Larry, you got Larry and Magic in there for sure.
Great.
Yeah. So.
But I know what you're saying, and it's funny because Jay Davis made a comment. Let me bring this back up here.
Yep.
As much as I hate all the changes in baseball right now, Manfred may have saved baseball, and he will have a strong legacy when he is gone. William Cooper.
He's not wrong on that, Jay. Look, I think time will tell how these things affect the game. Let's see how it translates into attendance and ratings and profitability. So we have to see how if the games people like shorter games, right? And you're not getting better attendance or profitability, you haven't done shit, right? So that's kind of where I'll go to. I mean, I admit that part of it surprised me. I mean, I still don't like the Phantom Runners on second. That needs to go. That's horrible. I mean, we
I
don't
don't
need
like that
that.
at all.
We don't need that. We
It
don't
makes
need
the
that.
game
Yeah.
feel like it's that aspect. I'll be honest with you. It makes me feel like baseball. When I see that, it reminds me of wrestling. You know what I mean? Look, I'm just gonna say it. If you're a
It,
diehard
yeah,
wrestler,
yeah, yeah, I hear what you're saying,
wrestling
yeah.
is fake. Let's just get it out there. If you don't believe, you're no different than a flat earther. But at the end of the day, wrestling is a choreographed event. And when I see the Phantom Runner thing in Major League Baseball, I'm like, wow, this makes baseball feel less authentic.
It's kind of
I
like
don't
the
like it.
shootout, and it's kind of like the shootout in hockey.
Yeah, but at
I
least
don't
with
like
the
the.
yeah, but
I
at
don't
least
like
with
the.
the shootout, like I don't know. I feel like the shootout's kind of different.
It still is. I mean, because that's a big debate. Okay,
I know what you're
but
saying, and I don't think that you're
yeah,
100% wrong. I'm not saying that,
right.
but I feel like
I'm just
it's
feeling
a
it.
little different.
I don't. What I'll say is I don't like it either. I would just prefer. I don't like it. I hate it in soccer. I hate that a World
Yeah.
Cup's decided on penalty kicks.
Soccer has it. Yep.
Yeah. So, but you know, at least they're not doing it in the playoffs with baseball, and I'll give them credit. And look, I've said this. I was a big proponent of having a DH in the AL and no DH in the NL. Had that rule change not happened last year, the Phillies wouldn't be in the World Series because Harper wouldn't have been able to play because he DH'd going in so down the stretch. So I'm just gonna say we benefited enormously from that rule change. Even though I hated that rule change about the DH, the Phillies totally benefited from that. I'd love to see it still go back, but I'm not gonna lie that we benefited from that last year.
Yeah, it's true. It's
Yeah.
true. I
Yeah,
like it. The DH thing, it doesn't that doesn't bother me as much. Look, offensively, even in the National League, how many pitchers were above average at the plate.
No, it was. I mean, look,
I mean,
even
it's
in the
not
minor
like
leagues.
I feel like having the universal DH league wide is kind of a better thing for everybody.
I like the fact that the AL and the NL had two separate sets of rules. That's what I liked about it. But
You're right.
Even in the minor leagues, they had already gone to DHs. So, these pitchers were coming up and not having to bat to begin with, right? So, but then you have like a really cool thing like Ohtani out in LA. That's
Yeah.
what we're seeing out there is a once in a lifetime generational player we're seeing there.
We have a comment from David. Did either of you lose your taste and smell when you had COVID? How long did it take to come back?
I didn't have COVID.
Yeah, you never
So
had it.
I can't. So I can't say. I wore my mask, so that's another debate. But no, I've been lucky, is what I'll say. But I do know some people who've lost their cigar smokers, who did lose it, and others who didn't. And it was varying things. Some people got it back within days, and some people. I know one person it took about 8 or 9 months to get it back.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was yeah.
I think I had it, and I never had that. I never lost the taste or the smell. It was pretty mild, so
Yeah.
I didn't really have any changes from
Yeah.
that. But yeah, I know people who have, sure. And kind of, I echo exactly what Coop said. I'm kind of in the same boat on that. So, I mean, losing your palate sucks. But everyone I know who lost it, it came back eventually, whether it was quickly or long. They did get it back. So.
Everyone was different. Yeah, is at least the cigar people I talked to.
Absolutely. I wanted to take a quick second to remind everybody that tonight we are cutting and lighting our cigars with none other than Cigar Blondie accessories, the double guillotine cutter and the flat blade flame lighter right here. They are available in 3 amazing finishes: chrome, black, and white, and they are available at cigarblondie.com. Check them out today. Great accessories. We rely on them every week. They're great.
Yeah, just a great that fan flame, so unique. The cutter is. I use this cutter every day. All I do is clean the blades on it. It stayed sharp. It's been sharp. So I love I've talked about how I love the feel of this cutter.
It does sit nice in your fingers.
It is very well designed. Good job by Leo on this line.
100%. Yeah, and that's an interesting point you made. You know how many people I run into who are like, "Oh, I need a new cutter." And I'm like, "Oh, why? What's wrong with it?" And they're like, "Oh, it's just dull." And I'm like, "Have you cleaned it?" And they're like, "No." And they look at
You
you
gotta
like
get those.
like you got 3 heads, and you're like, "Clean it."
Yeah, yeah. Like this cutter here. It's it's a little. I just kind of opened it, right. It's
Yep.
not the Blondie one, but it's a little dirty. It's the blades are a little dirty, so it's sticking a little, right.
Yep.
So if you don't clean these blades, and then when you try to open it, it's gonna put some stress on this, and the springs and thing will break. So it also will contribute to the lifespan of your what I tell people is I usually use a light amount of alcohol on it, alcohol prep, like an alcohol prep wipe, and I just wipe it down, and then I'll wipe it with a tissue or something to kind of get any residue off that, and it works great.
Yeah, I use alcohol. When it comes to like servicing my accessories, um, I use alcohol a lot myself,
Yeah.
and for example, like on my cutters, I use it on the blades, on the lighter, like on the torch lighters, um, the Cigar Blondie one, I don't really have to do it. Plus, the opening is really small on there, and you guys can
Right.
kind of see that.
It's
Versus
yeah.
like an ST DuPont Maxi Jet has the like the aperture almost to it, so when you open it, it opens up.
Yeah.
I'll get it open. There is a way to open it without igniting, and I'll clean like the tip of the like the jet head, and I'll do that on a couple other lighters that I have. And then, like for example, we have multiple line 2s, the SD DuPont line, the ping, the flip top. And if you don't have one of those and you don't use it, what will happen over time is, and I don't have mine with me, but on the inside on the top, you have like the flint tray on the top.
Yep.
And then you have the port where the gas comes out, and it's all chrome or gold or whatever, depending on which one you have. That whole like inside part, like not even just like one spot, like that whole inside, it gets like all black and like charry and build up on it, and if you let it sit for a while, it all builds up, and the whole inside of it just looks gross. And one of the best ways to clean them is I get a Q-tip with some rubbing alcohol. I just put it in there. I tap it, it's not too wet, and I just use that, and I just scrub the whole inside, and I clean everything, which is really the best thing to do. The alcohol evaporates, it'll burn off. You don't want to use water. You don't ever want to put water, especially in a lighter. I know some people who will soak a cutter if it gets really bad. To an extent, I think that's fine, as long as you dry it all the way when you're done, and you make sure you get all the water out of it. If I have an XO right here, so as long as you get it like inside all here where you have internal openings and stuff, you want to get it out of there so it just doesn't rust or whatever. I think that's okay. But yeah, alcohol is really the best. And there's a great point that got brought up. I don't even remember how we came to that, but
we were talking about the Cigar Blondie.
Yeah, no, and I think it's a great idea, and it's a good topic to bring up for the people who might not know. Rubbing alcohol, cleaning cutters and lighters. It goes a long way, especially, and it's not something people really talk about. Cleaning those jet heads is, in my experience, it's important, especially on lighters you use very often, because you get that kind of that. And Coop, you know what I'm talking about. You get that gold brownish kind of tinge on them after a while.
Yeah, it is gunk that builds up on them, kind of. Yeah,
it's good. Yeah, and it's good to just keep that all clean. So you have all the gas coming out evenly, and you don't have any like misfiring issues. Yeah, it's good to always take care of your stuff.
Yeah.
What I'm getting ready to go to my next cigar tonight, and I'm trying to decide. I think I'm going to go Angel Cuesta.
Nice. I haven't smoked mine yet. I think we were talking. I gotta say, this Romeo is smoking fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, it's well aged. It's not a strong cigar. It's tons of flavor I'm getting off of this. Really a good cigar. My burn may be a little wonky, but usually when I do a show that happens, so it's not terrible. It's not like meandering. It's just a little rough around the edges, but that will happen when I do a show.
Right.
So yeah, the Angel Cuesta. I have it. I haven't smoked it yet. So
I thought it. I first smoked the Toro. I'm smoking the Robusto now. Get that cut.
Yeah, I'm usually one. I always put everything for 21 days. In this case, we got some from J.C. Newman, and I have to split them up for the team, which haven't done yet. So I have to do that as well.
Closed foot on this cigar, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of flavor that comes out of it, and it's quite different from a lot of the cigars from J.C. Newman that I've smoked. I mean, I've smoked pretty much all of them at this point, but I feel like this cigar is very different than a lot of the other J.C. Newman cigars.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one. I mean, the big difference of it is a U.S. made cigar.
Mm-hmm.
So it is coming out El Rojo, but it's not a all-American cigar. It does use tobaccos. It uses other tobaccos. So, they always say when tobacco is moved from one place to another, it could be a little different. It doesn't use all American parts on the packaging, but it's a very limited cigar because, again, they have a very small rolling team at that factory. It's
And I think this cigar specifically, I've seen them rolling this cigar when I was at the factory. I have a video of it from somewhere. And there's only 2 people who rolled this cigar, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I believe so. And from what I remember, there are plans for more American-made cigars, though. Maybe not puros, but this whole, like, what they're doing out of El Rojo is under this banner called Fourth Generation Cigar Company, which is really Drew Newman's kind of baby. So the American was the first release, and there's some other releases that they planned. And J.C. Newman, if they say they're doing something in a year, it's 3 years later, because they kind of follow the Fuente mantra. They don't rush the hands of time. They don't care if it's going to be 2 years late. If they don't, like, one thing I can always say about a J.C. Newman product, it is always ready when it hits the market. I've never come to say, "Wow, I got to sit this thing for 4 months." No, it's always ready. Maybe it's not it's not going to hit my palate, but I can always say that cigar is ready to smoke.
The Toro, I'm being very open and honest here. The Toro at first was much more bitter.
Uh-huh.
Not necessarily in a bad way, but much deeper, bitter than I'm used to, especially with one of their cigars. And so far, this one is actually a lot less bitter. This one has a little bit of a different flavor to it so far. I mean, not drastically different. It's still, on par, but it's not as intense as the Toro was, which I find interesting.
Yeah.
And the other thing about this, I don't think the entire blend has been disclosed. Has it?
Of the Angel Cuesta, I don't think it has.
I think only the... Excuse me. I think only the wrapper has been disclosed.
Let's see. I'm just looking at Coop here. Blah, blah, blah.
I'm verifying that with you.
Yes, it is only the wrapper. And they call Ecuador and Habana. It's really Habano wrapper. But, yeah, it's undisclosed binder and filler. Which is probably telling me it's Fuente tobacco.
Oh, really?
Sorry. I mean, that's that would be my guess. So, I can't say it's all Dominican. Who knows where it's coming from? But that would be my guess on it. And look, if you haven't seen the final packaging of that thing in the box, oh man.
I mean, I have. I have another one here with all the bands on it.
Yeah, it's got the band, and when they lay those in the box, they're in those slots. I just saw Jay's comment about he's getting them and finally getting them, and they gave these to the TAA first. What I'll just say about the TAA.
Oh man, do we want to kick that up again?
That's just how they work, the TAA. It's just no, we're not gonna kick that up because we don't want to talk TAA anymore.
Well, I will say this: so TAA has passed, TPE has passed. And it is May 13th, so it's still a wee bit early, but not too early for the pre-PCA. We're going to probably get much deeper into that in June, but we are starting to see the first few announcements being made on what's coming to PCA from manufacturers.
Yep.
Now, so I have a couple of them in front of me. We can talk about these a little bit.
Yeah, I have the list in front of me as well, so we could definitely talk about it.
So
Because there are some. Yep.
let's start with United.
Oh
N-
man,
Now
they're
United.
already off. They're off to the races already.
So last year, all we talked about before, during, and after the trade show last year was United.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the shows, it's all we talked about. They were the booth we wanted to see. We went to the booth, tons of stuff we saw, and then on all of our post game shows, that was one of the first
Yep.
things we talked about. I mean, they had a great trade show last year. Alfonso came out. They brought some concepts for some other stuff. There's another Alfonso line that does exist, but it's not being released. We saw the Atabey Humidor, which was one of the things that's been announced that will be available at the trade show this year.
Yeah, they weren't taking orders for that last year. It was just on display.
No, but now they will be.
Yep.
And that's very exciting, and I think that's
Yeah.
fantastic. The other thing that United announced, and we can spend a few minutes on this because it's kind of interesting, is they have announced that they will be making the Atabey Black Ritos, which was the first cigar NFT. For those who remember from a couple years ago, even before LFD did theirs.
They were the first NFT, even though it wasn't there were no cigars associated with it. I think they get lost with this because I know Oliver is probably saying, "Hey, we created the first," and they did.
They did.
But this was completely conceptual. They were doing. It was all digital art.
And now they're actually bringing that cigar to market.
Yeah, I knew that was. I mean, not that I had any info was gonna happen, but when they put out that digital art, I'm like, that just didn't get pulled out of left field. Like I think and knowing that Nelson Alfonso ages this stuff for years, right? I'm like, at some point they're gonna release this. So
yeah, it's also not something
Yeah.
I think Nelson is. I don't think Nelson's the kind of guy to like tease something that will never
No.
happen. Like I'm sure that he has ideas in the background, concepts that might have never been made, and that's one thing. But to publicly
but
show,
this one,
he must have known like we're gonna do this, but like this has already been rolled.
see, but I knew about certain projects, and you did too. Certain United selected tobacco projects that were in the works, like Nelson, the Nelson line,
Yeah.
the Alfonso. We knew about those lines, right? This one they kept very much under wraps. I mean, this one was really kept quiet. And and I think at the time when they released the NFT, which was I think 2 years ago, they didn't. Nelson's probably saying, "Hey, look, I'm aging these cigars. I can't tell you if they're going to be any good, right?" So maybe there was no commitment to release them. But this is an absolute genius move by again the Selected Tobacco United just executing, and they have a very limited supply. So the United Lounges will be getting them, and anyone who bought the NFTs will be able to get them. And I think I'll assume if you bought like an NFT box, which was more expensive than an NFT single piece, right? You'll be able to get more of them. I don't know how that's going to work though. I assume they'll probably direct them to a United lounge to get them.
Right.
I haven't had a chance to ask Oliver how that's going to work yet.
I forget how many of those did they sell.
I forget. They according to what I saw, Oliver, I think there's a few still left.
Would they go?
They had quite a.
Jay
I
is
don't know.
saying that NFT is worth about 185,000 now.
For the Atabey?
I think so. Oh, correction, 1,875.
Okay, it's still pretty good.
It's very different, but yeah.
But if you, I mean, it's but yeah, I mean, I know what he was saying. Still, and I think again, the problem that United had when they did this is they didn't do anything wrong, right? But when they announced this, like for guys like me, we didn't even know what an NFT was. So they had the difficult task of trying to explain to a simpleton like me, like who's an old fart, right, what this was all about. And it took me like a day to figure it out, right? I couldn't get my arms around it. Now, we're 2 years later, and I know that LaFleur has done some things with it, and now Abe's getting ready to launch his sometime this year. And Castagli Cigars has now done something with it. So it's a little different. But back then, Oliver had the difficult job of trying to explain what the fuck this is, right? So, give them credit. They were the first, and they have they're bringing this full circle to the trade show, which I think is a brilliant this is again talk about United executing on all cylinders here. Oliver knows what he's doing.
I agree, and so far, and I bet you there's going to be more announcements from United, as you know. I mean, we're beginning of May right now. We got a lot of time.
Well, they had one other. The Red Anchor line extensions are coming.
Oh yes, that's true.
Did you have Red Anchor on your list?
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell.
Yeah, we did.
Holy cow, the Red Anchor's smoking good right now.
Mm-hmm.
I just we did one. We had Hendrik Kellner on our show a few weeks ago. I smoked one, and now it's gone through a review cycle. That Red Anchor is a hell of a cigar.
It really is. They did a great job with that.
They did a really good job with it. It's not for everybody, is what I'll tell you.
I think that's true.
It's not for everybody. If you're like someone who likes heavy Nicaraguan tobaccos, this cigar will do nothing for you, is what I'll just tell you. But it's kind of got some Davidoff qualities, and then it's got some unique qualities, I think, too.
I'm trying to find it. I know I did the story on that, and I can't.
I could tell you when the story was from. It was from March 7th. It was
published. It's way back in March. Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, they were the first PCA 23 announcement, I believe, was them. So they're coming out with 4 new sizes. One of them is an event size called the Cooper. It's a 4.5 by 43. Now, I did say to Hendrik, and Oliver, I think, was listening. I said, don't worry. I am not going to do a trademark challenge on this with you guys. So you guys can go ahead and use the Cooper name on this cigar. So, and in reality, I don't. It's interesting, because I don't have a product called Cooper, so there's not much I can do on it. But yeah, there is something called the Cooper, and I think it's probably going to be the best cigar on the line too. So that's the problem. Now, how do I review the Cooper? If I give it a good review, everyone's going to say, yeah.
Hey, you know what? It's better than someone coming to the trade show last year and calling their booth a cigar coop.
We won't go there, but yeah.
I know.
Especially since I interviewed them the year. I did a whole article on them too. And then we didn't know. Like, really? Yeah. That was or someone at the trade show displaying a cigar saying, "I can't talk about this because I promised Cigar Aficionado an exclusive." I mean, how ridiculous was that? So, yeah, it's just like you're displaying it at the trade show, taking orders for it.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. There's so much hypocrisy out there, and I always find that entertaining. You know, there's companies out there who talk so much about how they don't want to do anything with Cigar Aficionado and this and that, but then they kind of play by the same rules.
Yeah. And
I think it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, we've hit this. I know we beat this one a lot, and you know, I'm tired of being the minor leaguer, is what I just say. You know, it's convenient to give me if you don't feel comfortable enough giving me your national releases, okay, then I'll decide if I feel comfortable pursuing it or not. So, you know, there's some companies I have very good relationships with that do have the aficionado relationships, and I'm not going to win that battle.
Oh, it doesn't. I didn't even necessarily mean with them, just in general.
Yeah.
But that's all.
Well, the hypocrisy is they hate them, right, until they get the rating, until they get, and then they have the ranking, right? So, you know, if they hate them, well, if they get over a 90, thank you, Cigar Aficionado. And if they get a top 25, you know, they're bowing and curtsying. So, I mean, it's funny how I see this happen. I've seen it. I can tell you countless brands. I've seen some companies basically say, I don't give a shit. Like, I remember when Romacraft got the top 25 one year. Skip didn't do it. I give him credit. He didn't play the game. I respect him on that. He didn't change. He said thank you, and that was it. You know, and that's what he did.
Yeah, very classy.
Yeah. And you know, I'm not saying he wasn't happy about it, right? But because I'm sure he was. I mean, it's still a big thing to get. But he said thank you. He handled it really well, and good for him on that. Yeah.
The actually, I don't think this is a PCA release. Another one that we heard. I mean, it probably will be at PCA, but I don't think it's for PCA. Room 101's announcement this week that they're bringing the 70 ring gauge big payback. That's
Yeah,
not that's
this
not a
is
PCA release though. I think that's coming up before, right?
no, but it will be. I think it will be featured at the PCA because we're getting
Right.
close enough to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're bringing back the '70s, but it's a new blend. Um, I hate judging a blend by its book by its cover, but I have nothing against the 70 ring gauge cigar. But that wrapper, every time I see General use it, it's Alancho San Agustin. It's terrible. It's a terrible wrapper time and time again.
Mm.
It's every cigar they use it on. It's terrible. So I just, you want to give every cigar a fair shot, but I'm just saying every cigar. That's the old Osa wrapper that was on CAO years ago, and they've used it for a lot of things. And every time it's been used, it has been a consistently disappointing cigar. So I'm not upset about the 70. I'm more upset that, like, I just wouldn't use that wrapper. Maybe it's just me. That Alancho San Agustin wrapper is terrible.
Yeah,
I don't think it tastes good.
Time will tell. I mean,
Yeah.
we'll see when it comes out. Greg Williams is with us. Shout out to Greg Williams. I just wanted to take a moment to say, if you don't know Greg,
Rhode Island, right? Yep, his store in Rhode Island you were at.
That's right. Vintage Cigar and Lounge down in Westerly, Rhode Island. Shout out to them. Great place.
Good guy. Good guy, yeah.
Good people. Great lounge. If you're ever in the area, you have to go in there. Not you should. You have to go in there and check them out. Say hello. Tell them you heard about them on the Smoking Tobacco Show, and buy some cigars from them. Great people.
When I get up to New England, we should do the Rhode Island swing this time. When we go down again. I think Rhode Island is one of the. I think Rhode Island is one of the best cigar states out there. A lot of good shops there.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, you could do a nice little week. You just did one, obviously, but you could do a nice, and there's just some top-notch retailers there. And I haven't been there, Greg. Doesn't mean I don't think of you guys. So because I've heard great things about you. But I have to get there, so maybe that's a swing.
It's kind of close to Foxwoods and Mohegan too. So if you're ever down like that area near the casinos,
Wesley's like the first town over from Connecticut. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not too far. So if you're in that area too, like you can pop over there pretty quickly, which is nice.
Yep.
Yeah,
I know when I went to Mystic, when I stayed in Mystic, I was with my family though, but I remember Westerly was really close to Mystic.
Yeah, we went down there for a long weekend. We stopped by the lounge, we had a cigar and hung out. And then we went over to Mohegan and Foxwoods for the rest of the weekend. But it was nice. It was a great way to kick off.
Good for you guys. Good for you guys. Get a little I know you're getting to that point where you're not gonna be able to. It's gonna be harder to do that. So
yeah.
I'm glad you guys have to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It was a great weekend. So, JJ says, Coop, you ever get to PA?
Not as much as I used to, and but I used to go up to New York a lot more than I do now, for work and my family. But at some point, I got to get in. I want to get back to PA. Great cigar state as well. Both Eastern and Western and Central. I mean, Pennsylvania again, great cigar state. I've been to some great places in the Eastern Philly, the Northeast part of Pennsylvania, Central, and Pittsburgh. I mean, it's a great state. Bigger state to cover. You need to do about a week with Pittsburgh. I mean, not Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a big state. Yeah.
Rhode Island, you could hit a lot of those lounges on a weekend and hit most of the ones in the state. So it's everything's pretty small, but yeah.
I would say Rhode Island's a great one. Pennsylvania's a great one, even though I haven't really explored them both fully.
Yep.
New Hampshire's great. There's not as many shops, but the shops that are there are fantastic.
New Hampshire's great. Georgia, Atlanta area is really good. There's a lot to pick from.
Yep. Florida, obviously.
Yeah. I'd put Phoenix and Dallas in there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Phoenix is Phoenix is actually more Scottsdale. If folks get out west, you're going to do a weekend in Scottsdale. There's a lot of great shops out there too.
Yeah, I wanna explore those areas more myself. I've never been to Texas too, so if I ever get the opportunity to go to Texas, which I'm sure it will come up.
I am going to Texas for the McAuliffe event this year, by the way, which is probably going to be tough for you to go to. Yeah, so I am going to go this year. Plus, I want to see Bear and Jay out there, so I'm going to make a few days out of that. Yep.
Yeah, that'll be good. Any chance for you to get the team together, obviously.
Yeah. I don't know if the whole team's going yet, but at least I know I'm going to go because I want to see those guys.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to ask you about was... So earlier this week, El Septimo sent out a press release
Yep.
that they were hiring Michael Wasp from Rocky Patel. Now,
Mm-hmm.
this is not the this is like I think the fourth, maybe fifth staffing PR that we've gotten from them.
All right.
And you know, I had someone reach out to me this week and ask me why I wrote this story. And a lot of it had to do with, you know, oh well, and this is not my words, it's someone else's words. You know, well, you know, El Septimo's pissing off a lot of people. I can't believe you wrote that story. And I just wanted to remind everybody, and Coop, I know you'll echo this too. A lot of these stories that come from the manufacturers, you know, it's their story to tell. You know, we just report on it. So, I mean,
Right.
news is news. I mean, unless it's a ridiculous news or it's something like, you know, a very specific one shop exclusive that's, you know, not getting like a distribution. You know, stuff like that. Like at the end of the day, it is news. We report on it. It does bring in traffic. You know, people read it and they see it, and that's why we write it. I know that there's been a lot of talk about that specific company. They've definitely made a lot of moves. They made a lot of moves quickly. They seem to really be aggressively building up a pretty big sales team though, with some of these people that they've poached from other brands and big brands too.
Allegedly. We don't want to say they did or did.
Right.
Yeah.
Very poor choice of words, but you know what I'm saying. Like they're hiring people with experience, right? You know, I'm not saying poaching, but they are hiring
Right.
people who have experience, who've worked for big companies. I mean, if you just look at all the stories, I mean, you see where all the people came from. I think there's 2 from Rocky Patel. I think there's 1 from General. I think JC Newman had 1. I mean, so a lot of big brands. People have been around for a little while. I feel like every other week we're getting a story about a new lounge opening, which, if you remember last year, they said they were going to open 30 lounges in the U.S. Yeah, they're aggressively, they are really aggressively, you know, trying to build on everything that they talked about. And we've talked about this before, like, hey, are they going to do this? How long are they actually going to be around? I think it's still early, but I mean, at this point in the game with, you know, now let's kind of revisit this briefly, right? What are you seeing from El Septimo's rapid growth? Do you think that it's going in a good direction, or are you still kind of like, I don't know how this is going to shake out?
Okay, so I'm glad you brought this topic up. So let me say a few things. First of all, typically I don't publish a rep getting hired. Okay, I'm not saying I haven't done it before, but that's a typical model of I'm not gonna every time you get an employee, I'm not gonna post that, right? There's a couple of things I want to address though with this grossing. First up is last year when I came out of the trade show, I saw a lot of El Septimo, and look, El Septimo, a lot of cigar industry should look at what they're doing as far as communicating with the media. They do a good job with it, right? But
Yeah.
here's the big thing that came out of there. I kept saying, okay, you've got this company, right? You're saying you're doing all this stuff. Where is your sales team, right? You can't be moving this product, and this is not to disrespect brokers, but you can't use a broker model to do what you're trying to do. Well, what have they done in the last year? They're building an in-house sales team, right? And guess what? I'm finding out about it because they're sending press releases, right? So maybe it's not like, Matt, that's your choice if you want to publish it or not. But guess what? I'm being informed that they're building a sales team, right? So my questions are getting answered here right now. Okay? That question's getting answered. Maybe I don't publish that, but in my mind, I say, well, El Septon was built, and they're bringing experienced people in, right? So good job by El Septimo in that case, okay? Now, as far as their rapid growth, until I see sales numbers published that I can validate, I don't give a shit about what they're saying about growth, okay? Sales numbers are the only thing that's going to tell me what was your profit, how much did you sell, how much did you increase, right?
Right.
And even that, we're going to have to, until that happens, don't tell me you're the fastest growing company out there because I don't want to hear it, okay? You're not,
That's true.
it's all bullshit. Until you show me sales numbers out there, this is like, it's ridiculous, okay? That part's ridiculous. I'm not saying they won't do that at some point, but I'm just saying it's a joke. I mean, I have no way of validating that. I'm not going to put something in there saying this is the fastest growing, El Septimo, the fastest growing company, just hired this guy from Rocky. I'm not going to do that, right? Because that's not what this is about. But I do think they are. Look, this is where the cigar industry falls flat on their face. They don't understand how to leverage the media. This guy is manipulating the media, and look, give him credit for doing that, okay? again, it's our choices if we choose what to publish or not. And here's the other thing: I don't know who made this comment, but if it was someone in the cigar industry, shame on them if they're not doing the same thing. Is what I'm just gonna say. Shame on them because you have the same opportunity to do what they're doing. And guess what? There's nothing wrong with telling and informing the media you're growing your sales force, right, and making changes like that. So that's my 2 cents on that.
No, I mean I agree. I mean it's whether you love. I mean look, I'm not saying, I'm not defending them as a company. I mean I'm technically I'm neutral
I'm not either,
here.
but yeah.
I know people who work for manufacturers or people who own manufacturers, have had some comments and I'm not saying that one side's right or wrong. I have heard a lot of comments being made against them. They definitely
I have too.
They are definitely taking a much different approach, and I can see how it's much more aggressive, and I can totally understand, where people are coming from, and I'm not saying they're wrong, but outside of that, they are communicating with the media. They send us a story. We're gonna write it, and people read it. And
you have a right to publish what you want to publish. That's
Mhm.
your call. What you want to do that. That's there's nothing more on that. I know there's things that I publish sometimes that you don't publish and vice versa. That's just how it works.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, it's just. But when you're communicating with the media, when you're a cigar company, you need to be leveraging. You need to engage on 3 channels: consumer, retail, and media. Right? If you're not doing all 3 of those, you're immediately excluding a channel. And then, so last year when I come out of a trade show saying, well, where's El Septimo's sales force, right? Well, I'm getting that answer, right? Now, my other question with him is, tell me about the production, tell me about the people you have behind your production. They still got to answer that piece as well.
That's
so
true.
There's other questions about that, right? So, but they're addressing questions here. So,
you know what else I find very interesting? And I think I
yeah.
brought this. I think I brought it up on the regular show.
Uh-huh.
Can't remember. What I find interesting, though. So, I think on the last show we talked about this, or I always see it again with the 2 different shows. I forget what I said on what show. So if I repeat myself, forgive me.
You're getting older now. That's what's happened. So
I'm slowly getting there.
You're getting there.
No, but I made a comment about well, first of all, there's always rumors swirling around. One of the rumors recently that we heard a lot about was STG buying Davidoff. Now, this is not a new rumor. It's one that's particularly relevant again for the time being. So it's obviously been part of the discussion. But one of the things, and you and I have had this conversation, just
right.
off the air. Not
right.
we're hiding it, but just we've just had this discussion where, and I know we're kind of on 2 different spots from it. And I just look at it. I just look at it from things I see and hear from folks in the know in the industry, not just
right.
someone who comes up and says, like, I think this is happening. How do you know that? Well, I can't say. All right, well, that does nothing for me. But I take the pieces that I can validate, and I put them together, and I go, I'm not saying it's definitely happening. I'm just saying I could see it happening. Now, I've said this before. I think I'm calling it the STG buys Davidoff. If Davidoff decides to sell, I think that's the company that does buy them. I'm not saying it happens this year, but I think at some point in the future, if Davidoff does look to sell, I think STG buys them. That's all. For the record, that's all. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. What I have noticed about Davidoff, though, kind of on a separate issue, I know. Let's see. Probably maybe 5 or 6 retailers who at one time were very heavy or officially a Davidoff lounge, who have now gone from that to being El Septimo lounges, or have opened additional locations and made that an El Septimo lounge. Do you? I don't know if you know that or if you follow along with that, but have you seen that trend, Coop, where you're seeing so far a good handful of shops converting from Davidoff to El Septimo lounges too?
I've only seen maybe 1 or 2 that have done it, right? But I remember we had this conversation late last year, and I was like, I think Nicole was in on that conversation. I said, this is crazy. This is not happening, right? But obviously it has happened a little, right?
It has.
So I don't think it's moving the needle on anything, right? That's what I'm going to say. Other than there are, I mean, I think there's some things going on with certain retailers, maybe where their relationship is changing with Davidoff. And then you just want to, but it's something worth keeping an eye on.
Yeah, like
I'll say that.
I know there's a, like I said, there's a good handful. I believe Vartan is becoming an El Septimo Lounge. I know.
Right.
I think Jeff at Corona is opening a new location, and that's gonna be an El
The
Septimo
Sarasota
Lounge.
one, I believe, is El Septimo. You said that, I think, on your show.
There's another lounge in northern Florida, from what I understand, was pretty much no, it wasn't an official Davidoff of Geneva, but it was they pretty much only carried Davidoff. They are becoming an El Septimo Lounge. They're opening a new store, and they're gonna have an El Septimo Lounge. I think there's one more. I feel like there's one more that I know of. I can't remember which one, but I could have sworn there was a fourth one to that that I know for sure. And then I heard rumors about a couple others, but that have not been confirmed yet. And I'm like, is this because Davidoff's trying to pull away from doing lounges and stuff at stores? Are they changing their business model? And it's funny how the ones that I've seen change their lounge to El Septimo, for the most part, have been Davidoffs, and now they're El Septimos. I just find it very interesting. And it is early, and you're right. Keep an eye on it. You can't really get too into it yet, but it's so far you see the bricks being laid. I'm curious how many more end up going down that road.
Yeah, but here's how I look at that. I think these are still the only one that was kind of the one that was a little different was Davidoff got out of the Tampa Lounge with Jeff.
Right.
And Jeff bought that. They co-owned that with Jeff. They bought it back, but Jeff kept it. Jeff still has it. It's still a Davidoff Lounge, but now it's an appointed merchant lounge as opposed to a flagship store.
Well, he changed the name on it to Corona Cigar.
Right, but have it. Yeah, the difference is it's a Davidoff. It's a Davidoff appointed merchant thing.
Right.
He hasn't thrown Davidoff out. He's still selling the same amount of Davidoff. But when it's a flagship store branded as Davidoff, such, that's a different story. These other ones, I think, are not. They're not flagship stores. The one Vartan's was not a flagship store. Right. He had just a brand. So that's just all right. Who's going to sponsor your lounge and make a sense? I think it's something worth watching to see if more retailers flip to it. El Septimo is not even on the same page as Davidoff yet. They're not even in the same sentence as Davidoff yet. But the fact you're seeing two key retailers do this, you have to now say, take a step back and keep an eye on it. And by the way, I don't believe Davidoff is selling to STG anytime soon. I think no, I don't think it's happening. So I mean, I think very different. And I've kind of from what I've validated, this is, my feelings. One guy said it, and people listen to this clown, right? So, but you said you've talked to some other people that, and I know you and I talked, that are much more respected than the clown who put it out there. So
I've also been saying it long before that happened.
Yeah.
I was saying this last year.
And I said it last year to you, but I think there's not. What I'm saying is there is not a negotiation going on right now. However, is Davidoff maybe looking to sell the company? That's a fair comment. I think every company looks at that.
I think everybody has their price, whether they're actually actively trying to sell it or not. I think everyone at any point in time is like, we're not looking to sell, but if someone said, I'll give you this, fuck it, I'll take it. It's a lot.
Look, everyone should look at that. Like, everything's for sale. Why wouldn't you take a look at it, right?
It's business.
So it's business, right? This is not like, I don't think this is Davidoff. We want to get the hell out of this business. I told you I think there's some other scenarios that maybe are non-Davidoff scenarios that might happen. Not non-SCG scenarios. I do believe that if you looked at an acquisition for Davidoff, I think you're looking at something close to $750 million or above. I think it's a massive, because again, Davidoff's international presence. This is where El Septimo can't touch them in the international market, the Asia, Europe, Switzerland. Davidoff's got a stranglehold. El Septimo was not even on the map in these places, and they move a lot of cigars. And what you're seeing happen in Europe now is they're making a big play in Europe because of the Cubans not being it's getting more expensive to get Cubans, so a lot of companies are getting in there. So, like I said, I don't think it's anything imminent. But El Salvador has so much more work to do. But when you see Vartan and Jeff making a flip like this, these are not like trivial retailers. These are playmaker retailers in the world. That's when you have to say, well, these guys are doing this. Is more to follow, right? So I think now it's I remember when we had this story with Nicole, and I admit I poo-pooed it a bit, right? Now I'm taking a little step back, and I'm saying something worth watching. They're doing something, obviously. So
we'll see where it goes. But yeah,
we'll see where it goes. See where it goes. Yeah. And now that they have in-house sales reps, I'm sure this is much different than working with brokers now. You got to remember.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure these guys are going to be compensated. I'm sure these guys are getting compensated well, but they're going to have high expectations to drive business and do business development. So if you're bringing in big experienced people, which they are, right? You better these guys are gonna have to produce, and they're gonna have to produce at high levels.
Now,
is what I'm telling you.
Let me ask you this question. Let's say Davidoff would be looking to sell. Why would Davidoff want to sell?
There's a lot of driving reasons for it. It's still a family-owned business, right? So, a point is, does the family want to be in the business anymore, or does the family feel that they can't like? This is what happened when Camacho sold. Is Christian felt he had gotten that to a point where he couldn't grow that business anymore, right? And that's why he sold when he did, So there's points you look at that, and you look at what the market is hot right now, and if you can get a price like Alec Bradley got, you certainly go and do it. So I think it's all business driving reasons to do it.
Yeah.
More than anything. It's up to if the family wants to stay in that business or not. That's really what it's going to come down to.
Alan actually brought up something. I want to get your opinion on it. He said, I don't believe the rumor that STG is buying Davidoff. Nearly the entire deal would be financed with debt. Davidoff might be too big for them to buy. I wouldn't be surprised if a private equity group out of Dubai or Hong Kong purchased Davidoff, maybe Japan Tobacco, JTI.
I agree with everything with the JTI. I think this idea of not like big cigarette companies, they don't want to take on this. But I agree
it's
with
like an outside equity firm.
I think it's an outside equity firm. Yeah, I believe they've proven, like, their accountants will probably tell them don't do this because premium cigar is just. We've seen this happen with British American Tobacco did it and they got out. Altria got out, and I don't see JTI doing it. I do see private equity group. Maybe a private equity group out of Europe does it. That's what I'm saying. But maybe I think if it's anything, it's going to be a private equity group. And I agree with Alan on the first part of that statement. That's why. And then I don't see STG doing that. That's a I mean. That makes the Alec Bradley thing look minor compared to what we're talking about here.
Oh yeah, for sure.
To do that, yeah, that's why I don't see that happening.
Just think, Alec Bradley got $72 million for that company. It's like, then you look at Davidoff, you're like, all right, well, what are they worth? And so you're saying if you were to estimate it, you would put a price tag on Davidoff as a whole, $750 million.
I'm not an expert.
Right.
Okay.
I know.
I that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking they're 10 times the size of Alec Bradley is kind of what I'm thinking.
I mean, they got global operations.
And there's
factories,
they got farms,
tobacco inventory, staff. They got retail stores. They have inventory on hand. I'm sure they got a lot more inventory on hand than Alec Bradley does.
Yeah.
There's a lot of assets there, when you compare the two. There's a lot of money there.
So, when you look at, I forget, when you look at what Altadis sold out to them, Davidoff still, Davidoff has much more of an international footprint. So they have, there's markets that they're in.
Well, outside of Habanos, like you said, outside of Cuban cigars, outside the U.S., when you look at the global market, outside of Habanos, who's the number one brand?
Right.
I mean,
outside the U.S.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For people, like, other than if you take the whole global cigar market and you were to take Cuban out, who's the next guy? Davidoff. I think that they've had a global presence, but I think you're right. Now that the Cuban market has significantly changed, I think that they're trying to jump on that opportunity, as well as even some other U.S. in terms of United States, bigger companies. Fuente, look at Fuente. Fuente's going after the global market. You got Jose, Carlitos going over there and doing stuff in Dubai and other countries. I think they're definitely trying to expand, obviously, and take advantage of that. And I know there's other brands who are doing so, but those are the first two that come to mind. Obviously, is when the Cuban cigar prices, almost quadrupled in price, and you're probably going to see a lot less people buying them. Well, who's the next guy they go to when they want, something of that caliber? Davidoff. I could see Fuente, really expanding globally. Things are changing. The times there are changing, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
But Davidoff's name is synonymous in the luxury market still.
Mm-hmm.
Fuente, I think Fuente's probably there as well. But Davidoff, I'd say, is, as far as a luxury brand, it's so more identifiable still in a lot of ways. But Fuente, I think, is right at there too. But Davidoff is certainly there.
Yes.
And again, nothing against Alec Bradley. That's not that type of company. That's why. And I think, like I said, Davidoff, like I said, they're the moves they're making about like their price increases are solidifying their position as a luxury brand, and it's some smart moves they're doing. I think they still have to work a lot more on Alvaro and Camacho, because I think if they get that piece going, then they'll be. I think that will really help. They have to get Alvaro and Camacho going a little more. But I think
they are. And I think they're working on it.
I think they are too. I do believe they are. Sometimes they move a lot slower. I mean, I remember when Davidoff acquired Camacho in 2008, and there was about a 2 or 3 year period where Camacho was literally dormant, right? Like, and I remember I ran into Dylan, who was running the Camacho marketing. We were at Cuenca Cigars in Hollywood.
Yep.
And this was in early 2013. And I was talking to Dylan, and I'm like, Dylan, what the fuck's going on with Camacho, man? And he's like, just wait, was his words to me, right? And about 3 months later, they announced the overhaul, the rebrand, which was a very successful rebrand that they did. Because Camacho just went on fire for a while. It slowed down a lot. So I think whatever they're thinking with these brands going forward, it sometimes takes a while to build what they're looking to do, or in this case, rebuild what they're looking to do. But I have a lot of confidence. But I see what Davidoff's doing with, how they're positioning Late Hour by Winston Churchill and things like that. They're clearly really focusing on these lines and making them ultra premium lines right now, where they can compete with Habanos, but still be probably still at a better, more competitive rate. But it's going to take a lot of work to do it.
Yeah.
Once they do that, their company's going to be worth more money.
Well, let me ask you this question. So let's say Davidoff doesn't sell, right? Let's say that that's not an option.
Right.
For sure
we don't know, and we don't know if they're selling, right?
Right. But let's say we don't know if they are or not. But let's say they're not, right? And it goes the other way. Do you see Davidoff trying to acquire maybe one or two more, if not more, smaller brands to add to the portfolio to build up like Avo and Camacho? Or do you think that they stay with what they got and they put everything into, white label and Avo Camacho, and they just try to build it all together and not get it too complicated?
I don't think they do. Right now, the only exception I may say to that is maybe they just decide they acquire a factory in Nicaragua or operate a brand out of Nicaragua.
Okay.
But I don't. I think that's for long shots. I don't see it happening. I think they're going to war with. They have 3 big brands, that they should be able to move these brands. And I don't see, I don't see that happen. I don't see them adding another one. When they went after Camacho, a lot of the goal was they wanted to take Camacho into a global brand, and they started to do that. Over the years, so. That again didn't happen overnight, but Camacho now is more prevalent in Europe and some places. So I don't see it happen. I don't see an acquisition in the card, but you never know. Again, something could be presented to them, which again makes a lot of sense for them to take it. So, and that's the case with any company.
And the only reason why I say that is because, Jay kind of touched on it. So I would say on a global scale, their primary competitor is Habanos SA. Right? And Habanos has, how many brands in the portfolio?
100. Yeah, I mean, they have a lot.
So it's like, do they feel like they need more brands under their own belt to compete with all the different brands that Habanos has? Or do you think they don't necessarily need that? They just need a good handful of them, and they can.
I don't know if they view it the same way as STG did.
Okay.
Like STG, I think wanted to have this, and again, because I think STG is more driven from the catalog world. So that's why I think STG viewed the Alec Bradley thing a little differently. And it made a lot of sense because they were already having a lot of their cigars made through Alec Bradley. So I don't see them needing more brands to compete in that market. They can certainly strengthen the three. They have a lot more than 3 brands. There's other brands they have too, and they can always try to resurrect one of them, like Griffin's, which is I think Griffin's is more of a boutique brand they have. But they have
I
other.
forgot about that.
They have Cusano, which they don't really do much with Cusano. There's a market for that, but that's not and they have Baccarat too. Everyone forgets Baccarat's in their portfolio, right? So I don't see it. If anything, I see them going to where their strength is, which is the Davidoff line, right? And do you work to really kind of strengthen white label, maybe expand black label, come out with it, maybe So I think you work on that Davidoff line. I think that Davidoff name it's so powerful, right? That's one of the most powerful brand names out there. You can do it. The problem is like what STG has, right? So their powerful brands are like in the U.S. like they have Cohiba, right? They can't sell Cohiba like internationally, right? So.
No.
So they're kind of limited with that, right? So you see them. That's why CAO underwent a huge expansion, right? So yeah, it's a little different. What I'm saying, Davidoff has already has that international brand out there. So why try to compete with that Davidoff line if you have something already very strong?
Mitchell said here in Canada, the top 3 recognized brands within the cigar smokers are Habanos, Davidoff, and Fuente.
I think Fuente don't under. I mean, they've made moves over the last few years to strengthen their. They have a good international distribution network already, but that's why Jose went over. That's why Jose went over there for a while. And I think if you see what Jose's doing, Jose's spending time in a lot of stops in Europe, and they're going for market share out there, and I think he's doing a great job with that. They're spending a lot of time in Europe right now.
Do you think that's another reason why Fuente decided to build a factory in Nicaragua? So they can increase their production scale while also kind of, having that Nicaraguan aspect. Obviously, they have their Dominican roots that they're already established with. But do you think that part of that Nicaraguan, obviously they probably going to bring some different kinds of products to the market with the Nicaraguan factory, but do you think it also helps just have even more production to meet up with an increased global demand?
Yeah. I mean, they could have done it in the DR, right? But I think there was something with Carlito wanted to get back into Nicaragua. I think that was something that was really on his what he wanted to do. So, and it certainly gives them. They have farms now in Nicaragua as well. So I think it gives them a big presence there to do that. But I think part of it, I think that's it. And I think Carlito really wanted to get back into Nicaragua. I think that was something that was always on his mind.
No, I know he did. Yeah. And you're 100% right about that. I just didn't know if another facet as well, when we go back to Nicaragua, we can maybe double production, and everyone knows Fuente. Fuente already has, kind of a backlog.
Yeah, but if you're asking me if Carlito's going to be producing more Opus X's, no, I don't think that's going to be the case. Yeah.
Not necessarily just Opus. And it's not, when it comes to Fuente, all of the stuff they make. It's not just the Opus.
But again, they have a very strong brand name. Fuente. Arturo Fuente is a very strong brand name. Mm-hmm. It gives them more capabilities now to expand that brand name, where they don't need to buy someone out to do it. So I think there's certainly, again, they're working on the strength of a international brand name that's very, very synonymous with, in the market. So.
Yeah, the global market is. It's not something we talk a lot about. Obviously we focus a lot on the U.S., but. I've been slowly more and more paying attention to the entire global market, not just the U.S. And you're right. There's a lot of changes being made, and there's a lot of things. Yeah,
these Habanos price moves. They're responding to the demand they have, right? And now, other companies are seeing opportunity. Inner Tobacco will be very interesting this year and next year. My plan is to go to Inner Tobacco next year. By the way, I think I told you that. I'm not gonna go this year. But that's my plan to go next year because I want to see what's going on there. I'm not saying Inner Tobacco will be a regular stop for me, But I think with PCA moving to the spring, it makes more sense now to do an Intertabac next year.
We get more
So
time in between.
more time in between, and now, yeah. But we should always remember, for most of the companies that we talk about day in and day out, the most important market is right here. It's still the most important market. But I look at Coop and smoking tobacco. I mean, I've had a big jump in international traffic.
Oh yeah, me too.
Over the yeah. So I am looking at that very closely, and I only can judge things based on who reads the site. And usually that's a good barometer for how the companies are doing. There's always some anomalies.
Mitchell said, I would
So-
say close to 30% of the Cuban-only smoking friends are now dabbling in non-Cubans due to price and availability.
But that's why you have and I think that, let's say that's the case in Europe. That's why Jose went over there. That's why Jose
Right.
got a job over there. He's become that ambassador role is something that is not it's a very serious role is what they're looking at with that. He's absolutely looking to do that because again, the Mirafels, he works with the Mirafels in Europe as far as distribution goes. They handle
Correct.
a lot of distribution. But again, now Jose, a member of Fuente, is there on the ground, and he's going and visiting these shops, and that's why this is key. And now he's coming to the U.S. I think the strength, obviously they want to strengthen some things in the U.S., and I think that's why his role expanded.
Yeah.
Brilliant moves Fuente's been doing. These are smart moves they've been doing.
Yeah, as a company,
Yeah.
they have been doing a lot, and
Yeah.
they've gone in so many different avenues, with what they've been doing too. A lot of and I mean, look at some of the partnerships they have now. I know like that doesn't always necessarily translate to like, well, that just means they're gonna sell more cigars, but they're associating their name. You talk about the luxury, right? Fuente has partnerships with Hublot, which is a very high-end luxury watch manufacturer. Stefano
Yep.
Ricci,
Carlito, he was out. Yep.
very high-end luxurious clothing brand.
Yep.
You get the partnership with Asseline with Aaron Sigmund's books. I mean, those books aren't cheap. Just so you know, that big book that you see, the Opus X book, that's a $1,200 book. Just so you know.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
that's a luxury publisher. So they're associating themselves with all of these like other luxury companies, and I think that they're on that same path of like kind of like Davidoff. It established itself as a luxury brand, not just like a premium cigar company, a luxury brand.
Which most of the people, including us, this is not something we participate in on a day in and day out basis, is what I'm saying. But there is a market, a huge market with a lot of money in that market. Why Rolex can do what Rolex does, right? I'm just saying, there's a market for this stuff, right? Davidoff coming out with now it's a $600 cigar is not for us. Maybe we'll talk about it on our site or review it even, but and I have reviewed it, but that's not what this is being designed to do. There's a market with a lot of disposable income out there that they're trying to target right now.
I think the next 10 years is going to be so fascinating to watch.
Yeah, I do too.
Provided that, like legal stuff isn't like a major challenge.
Yep.
If you take all that outside, things are kind of like, at least stay the same
Yep.
for the most part. I think the next 10 years are going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah. You know what's kind of interesting is, another guy who's got some good I think he's building his international presence and no one's talking about is Perdomo.
That's true.
Perdomo's really done a good job with that. I know, and I'm not just talking Europe. I mean, when I was down at the Perdomo factory, they just opened up some distribution in Africa and stuff like that. We had some folks from Mozambique. Oh no, Madagascar. Madagascar. It was on my trip. So the Czechoslovakians were on our trip. So
Really?
Perdomo just opened up England. I mean, so Perdomo, don't underestimate what they're doing internet. They certainly like a little bit of a different play for them. But certainly they're seeing a lot of opportunity with that. I mean, that's a big thing when I talk to Nick next time. I want to kind of get a little more handle on some of the operations they have internationally, for sure. But I know Perdomo this is not new to them. They've been in I know they've been in Australia for years. They've distributed into in tough market, but they still have a distribution out there. So yeah.
One of the brands that I'm surprised. I mean, well, maybe I just don't know. What about Padron?
From what I understand, Padron doesn't have as strong a presence in Europe.
Are you surprised
It's
by
some
that though?
No, it's tough. It's tough. I'm not totally surprised just based on their production capabilities and all that too. I don't know if they have enough to supply Europe.
Yeah,
Maybe the
that's
problem.
true.
Like in Europe, the other player in Europe is Maya Selva. They're a huge player in Europe.
Hmm.
Yeah, they're huge. But I know Padron goes to Intertabac every year, and I think it is something they're looking at certainly growing their distribution on. But
Because
yeah, Padron, I wouldn't say. I think Padron's a little further behind on that.
I feel like Padron's that is another one of those brands that I think could do well.
Yeah, I do too, and I do too. I know less about their distribution internationally, but I do know it's that I would say they're behind the companies we talked about, including Perdomo.
Mitchell said Padron can never supply enough. They dropped Canada because of that.
That's the part of the problem.
Yeah.
That's exactly part of the problem they got. Like, and I know that when we were down in Nicaragua, Padron is doing some expanded operations. They're going to be doing some. They're going to be expanding their factory capabilities. They never thought they'd even reach capacity, is what George said.
Mm-hmm.
And now they've now so there's going to be changes happening down there. They have the factory down there is not. I mean, they have several factories, but it's not as big as you would think.
Yeah.
That's what It's no General Cigar or even Tabacalera Fuente.
And they box and
So
ban their cigars in the U.S., right? And they press them here.
yeah, I believe you're right on
Their
that.
cigars are pretty much only just rolled in Nicaragua, and then the
Yeah,
production gets finished here in Miami.
I believe so. There may be some stuff that's finished down. I think some of the Damasos may be finished down there, but although I think they do finish the Damasos down there because again, it's that wrapper and stuff. It's a little more tricky.
Yeah. Mitchell brings up another good name. Plasencia has a decent exposure here now, slowly growing. Plasencia is another brand.
They got a long way to go. They're also they're starting to build
do.
their international. But they're more of a manufacturing company, an agricultural company. Their brand is still relatively small, but certainly, I think they just opened up really their distribution only 6 years ago. They got a long way to go, but they've made some headway. Certainly in the U.S. they've made some headway.
Oh yeah,
That's
sure.
That's a tough thing to set up distribution, and they've done it the right way. They're slowly organically building that line. But again, they have their bread and butter is the factory and the farms. I mean, they supply enormous amounts of tobacco. They make an enormous amount of cigars from other people. But I think for their brand, they've focused their brand as a luxury brand.
Mm-hmm.
It's again, that's why they're coming out with $40, $50, $60 cigars.
And they have they're doing Zodiac stuff. They made a cigar for the World Cup, which I think that World Cup cigar was like $60 or $70 from what I seen.
65. I have a review coming out of that pretty soon. So
I saw a box of those at Vintage in Westerly, Rhode Island. I saw those down there. They're on the shelf.
Yep.
Yep.
They're on the shelf still. Some sold out quickly and others haven't. So but they're building their core line slowly. So I think it's worth. They usually come out with a new core line. I think this year wouldn't be surprised if we see a new core line from them. Usually every other year they'll add one. I know there's more Almas coming. There's at least 3 more Almas they have in the queue.
Oh, really?
Like there's like an Alma de Agua and Alma. There's
Alma de Oro.
Sky. Nah, there's like a water sky. It's like
kind of like what
but,
Davidoff did with like Escurio and Yamasa.
kind of, but more of the they have different elements. Like they did one with the land, then they did one with the fire. Now I think they're gonna do one with the water or something like that. So, Alma is like love of So I see that Alma line, but they have if they went to release all those Almas in 2 years would be a terrible move by them, right? So they're kind of bringing these into the market. The Coseca is the other line they have. That they slowly build that piece up as well. So I just think they're just taking a more organic approach to what they're doing. But slowly building up I think they have a very strategic model what they're doing. Come out with like 10 different blends at the beginning would be a bad move for them.
Yeah. And I think
but
they've done a
Mitchell's
great
right.
job.
I would watch them. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. They have done
Yeah.
a great job, and
Uh,
everything that they've come out with so far that I've smoked has been
great.
phenomenal. I don't. There hasn't been one that I'm like, I
They
missed the boat.
struggled to put their. They were struggling for many years. Because when they launched the distribution in 2017, it's not the first time they had put Plasencia's name on a cigar. They struggled with a lot of them. They've partnered with different companies. It didn't work. So now they formed their own distribution. Um, they did the best. They did the best company rollout I ever saw at a trade show. They did everything the right way. They got media, media and retailers involved, and then they've engaged consumers in other ways. They have done a great but their launch at the trade show, no one's ever topped them for how they did it. It was all done, and it was all done like it had a little bit of that CES Consumer Electronics feel, how they kind of did it. They were. I never forget. I went to the booth in 2017, and I got an interview with Nestor Andres. I didn't. I asked for the interview. I got it, and I figured, he's just gonna talk to me, and he knew who I was, which shocked me. Like I didn't, and he was very familiar with what I did, because he's, when someone makes comments about specific things that you say or do, then you know that it's something real. And I'll say this, every year we've gone to the Plasencia booth, Matt, we've gotten time with them. That's one of the busiest booths out there. So the way they've been tremendous to deal with as far as a media company goes. And Nestor Andres is one of the classiest people I've ever met in the cigar business. Just such a nice guy, humble guy, and Bear and I interviewed him actually once for the show, and it was we got him at the last minute, and he was great with us. So
yeah, he came on with us last year. No, he came live from the factory. He couldn't stay live. I think we got him for like 30 minutes, but
that's how he. Yeah. And again, a lot of these guys, they don't. We get spoiled by doing hour and 2 hour shows with these guys. That's 30 minutes, but we got 30, and it was like the best 30 minutes we ever got, is what I'll say.
Yeah, no, 100%. I would agree with you on all of that.
Yeah. And by the way, I gotta give Bear credit. Bear made that interview happen. It was Bear. It was all Bear. And he came to me and says, "Can we do this?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Like, it's gonna be like we had 3 days notice, or 2 days notice. I said, "We're gonna do it." So
I've been there.
So we rolled up our sleeves and we got it done, and I think we did a nice job. It's special edition 18. You got to go way back to 2017, but we got them. We'll probably do to get them again at some point. But yeah, you got them too. So yeah.
Now, I wanted to ask you. So just before we go too far, just so that I can kind of keep on track here. What else did you have on your list of things that you wanted to bring up on the show tonight?
Let me pull up here because I think we hit a lot of them.
I haven't heard a beef of the week yet, so
I don't know if I have a beef of the week. To be honest with you,
I was curious
as
about
far
that.
As far as cigars go,
you haven't had anything to complain about.
No, I mean I did my spiel on press releases, which was interesting. We talked about Atabay. We didn't talk about this one.
Okay.
There was one I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
So a very interesting announcement came from CLE about a week ago. The
Which one?
Sensorium.
Yes.
Asylum Sensorium.
Yeah.
I thought this was a very interesting announcement, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's been and I think this is why I'm glad that CLE has really been investing in public relations more. Shout out to Gabriel Panaris of Creativus. He's done a great job already out of the gate. And they did something that was really surprising to me. They're coming out with not so much that they're coming out with a $50 to $60 cigar line called the Sensorium, and it's because of some of the tobaccos they're using. We can talk about that later. But the fact that they decided to put this under Asylum was mind-boggling to me. And I'm not bashing the move. To me, this is why I want to talk to Tom a little more on this and Christian. But, to me, I was like, well, isn't Aroa their super premium brand? So why go with Asylum with that was my question. Does that show that maybe Asylum has legs right now, where they feel they're more confident that they could do this under Asylum? Because again, this tobacco they have, they could and maybe because they wanted to do. I mean, they're doing a 6x60 and an 1118, right? So they're not doing like an 80 ring gauge here. But yeah, I just thought it was very interesting, just from what they're doing marketing wise, that they decided to pursue this under the Asylum line.
That is a good point.
Yeah, to me, it's. I want to wait and see how it works out. I'm not bashing it by any means. It is a little surprising to me.
Yeah, and from what I understand, so this is a cigar, and they're using, where is it? I gotta find it. They're using
They're using a tobacco, which is called Pinarino. Pinarino.
Cuban seed Pinarino.
Yeah.
I'm not super familiar with that tobacco. Are you?
No, I think this is something they've been cultivating. It's kind of a more of a proprietary thing. I think they're doing. They had some of these seeds from Cuba, and Julio Aro has been growing them. You know, it's another one of these tobaccos. It's very low yield because it's susceptible to mold. But you know, if you've gone to the Aroa, the JRE tobacco farm, Julio's farm, you'll understand that they have a lot of things in place to mitigate these blue mold problems. They put a lot of agricultural things in place to do it. Just little things like eucalyptus trees, which kind of help fight the mold and things like that. So, you know, Julio has been working on this. You know, a lot of tobaccos Julio Aroa is working on that farm. It's a farm. If you get down to that farm, you absolutely have to get down to that farm. So, you know, it's one that they're actually going to introduce. Obviously, they think it's a very good tobacco, and they want to introduce it into the market. And so I can't tell you. I've never smoked it. The other thing I thought that was really interesting with this is they're going to hand sell this cigar. Tom Wazuka and Christian are going to hand sell this cigar personally.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so they're basically, their words were they're gonna like basically go there and they're gonna give retailers a chance to smoke it with them, which I think is a very smart move. Obviously this is not gonna be a massive production line they're doing, right? But again, it's something, and again they're targeting a market. But I kept going back, like, why wouldn't you put this under the Aroa name? To me, this one, that's why I scratched my head. But I understand that Asylum's got a lot of legs in the market, so I can kind of see that point. But that's the part that kind of puzzles me a bit with that.
Yeah, you're right. It is interesting. It is interesting.
It's a lot of criticism. I think they may, you know, I'm sure Gabriel's probably going to be working on this with them over the next year or so, you know, as this rolls out.
But I know what you're saying. It's like, why do it under Asylum? Like, is there something? Is there something going on here that maybe we don't fully realize yet?
Yeah.
Are we gonna? So wait, are we gonna see this cigar at the trade show?
It's going to be out before the trade show.
It's before the trade show.
Yeah, but I'm sure it will be showcased at the trade show. You know, once I think really, like, once things, if anything starts hitting the market in June, as far as I'm concerned, I cover it on my big board, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, because again, a cigar like this is not going to be massively infiltrating the market. I think a lot of people will see this at the trade show for the first time. So some companies just choose to release their stuff before the trade show.
Oh yeah, here's the pricing. So the Ascen, or the Ascen, is that how you say it? Ascen? Ascen 1118 with an MSRP of $50 per cigar and $1,000 per box. And the Ascen 60, which is a 6x60 with an MSRP of $60 per cigar, and that is a $1,200 box.
Yep. I mean,
definitely,
so these are
definitely a very high price point. I mean, when you look at the cigars on the market that carry that price point,
yeah. Now
that's a high price point.
It is. Now, Asylum has had a lot of success with their $25 lines, the anniversary cigars.
Yeah.
They've done very well for them. And maybe they see, all right, we've been able to tap into. And by the way, that Asylum 7 is the greatest 70 ring gauge cigar that ever come out.
Mm-hmm.
The 11, I think, comes out this year. So they're kind of continuing to do that. So, yeah. And then these box counts, they are.
They also did a repackaging and
20 count box.
And a rebranding of the Asylum line. Which we first saw at TP. I know you weren't there, but we saw them at the booth. A little bit more. Much more uniform. on the
That was
shelf when you have it all together. But definitely a little bit more distinguished. Not fancy, but
yeah.
more distinguished.
See, and that's where I think this is having a guy like Gabriel come in, and these are things he can focus on. He really is good at like working with companies to. And folks that don't know, Gabriel runs a PR firm out of Miami. He really has a core competency in the cigar business. He knows how to get this messaging out. He knows how to engage the channels we just talked about, right? These 3 channels. And unfortunately, like he wasn't there for that announcement, so like I didn't even see it, right?
Right.
You saw it, but I mean, so. I think they could probably even reintroduce it again at the trade show this year, and I think it will be a big difference here. So, yeah, I think that what they're doing with some of the asylum stuff, I think it's. And by the way, this is not a knock on Tom and Christian, great guys. They've always been supportive of us. So, but I think they needed to have some help here, and they got a guy who can really help them.
I agree 100%.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Gabriel's as a true professional. So
I've
very
known
happy
13
to hear.
years. Yeah, he's great to deal with.
Yeah, I was really happy to hear that they went with him, because he's the perfect guy for them right now, I think.
Yeah, and I was frustrated with them. I'm not gonna lie, because we were gonna talk about this rebrand. Like, well, come on, is there anything that came to us on this? It's like, but now they got some. But when you do something like Sensorium, this is something you really got to get the messaging out. And it sounds like not only do they have like a guy who's just getting information out, there's a strategy they have. The one question of the strategy is why Asylum. And I think that's the part I want to ask them at the trade show, if I get to them beforehand on it.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a booth to not miss and spend some time at the trade show, I think.
Oh, I think so. I mean, I think there's a lot of stuff that I know they have planned as well. So, and it's always a busy booth. It's a big booth. Last year I kind of picked on Tom a bit on it because the booth was kind of, unfortunately they had stuff that didn't arrive. But it was also not an exciting year for them. And sometimes, when you have a big year coming up, you don't want to bastardize it. So you have you kind of go maybe quieter the year before. And I've seen like other companies work in that model. And then like Illusione's an every other year company at the trade show. EP Carrillo tends to be the same way in every other year company. So, and that's not a bad business practice to have.
Oh, and you know what? I can't believe I forgot about this. Talking about brands that are bringing stuff to the trade show that we're going to want to see. And I think we kind of covered this. We might have talked about this a little bit already, but I'm going to bring it up just for the sake of, the collection. But Steve Saka is bringing some stuff to PCA.
Bringing some stuff, and what did he do? He got the jump on everybody with that. Great job by Steve.
He did.
So he's got a lot of stuff coming out at the trade show.
Krakatoa. He's bringing more Saka Khan and the Papa Saka, new size for Mi Carita Black. He's bringing a Holiday 2023 Stillwell Star.
Right.
He's bringing the Wagashi.
Is he bringing the Wagashi? I thought the Wagashi's next year.
I thought I heard he was taking orders at this trade show for release next year.
Yeah. By the way, we got to talk about Wagashi before we get off the air. But maybe that's the case. I'm not.
I don't think he said that, but I heard that through the.
He may bring. I could see him having the box on display there, at a minimum.
And then what else? And then what? Did I miss one?
You missed a few. So the big one you missed, and I think this is the one that's a big story, is the national release of Red Meat Lovers Club. That's going to be the big one.
Yes. National release. Yes.
Yeah. Yep. And then Polpetta is going to become a regular release, as well. And then he's got a couple.
And a name change on that one too, right? What is he changing? I thought he said he was changing the name on Polpetta. It's going to be something else.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't heard that.
Okay.
Maybe, and I missed it. And he's got the unicorns coming out in the Carita Black and the Brulee. But I think Red Meat Lovers Club is the big one this year because that's his core. That's gonna be a core line he's introducing. And I know that was he had some talk with I think part of what he wanted to do with that is protect Red Meat Lovers Club as his brand, and not. And I'm gonna be talking to Steve in a few weeks, so I'll get more insight into that. And I think now under Dumbarton, I don't think he has to worry about someone else doing a Red Meat Lovers Club cigar. And those were, well, I want to talk about how how Abe does store exclusives with Wagashi in a bit. But I think that's the big one. I think Red Meatloaf becomes a huge one. It's a lifestyle brand in a lot of ways, right? So it's a big. I think that's a major. I think that's Steve's big one this year. Like I think that's the one I'm judging more than anything else right now. It's how Red Meatloaf's Club goes out.
Yeah, and I believe he's bringing 4 out of 6 sizes.
He is bringing. Yeah, there's one. The original Red Meatloaf's Club is 4 sizes, right? The original size that was released for Abe, which is the Parejo, the Toro Gordo, that's not getting released.
Okay.
But the beef stick is getting released. The meat box press is being called a ribeye. And then there is a 5x54 filet mignon and a 6x60 porterhouse, which are new. So
paper bundles.
again,
I know those are your favorite.
I don't know that. That's a 10 count boxes I have on here. But is that here's the thing: the paper bundles worked for Abe, right? Because when you're doing, he was primarily moving those cigars through smoking.com.
Right.
Paper bundles are fine, but I think now if you want, they got to go into box. I can't see them not staying. They got to go into boxes when they're released. They gotta. Yeah. I mean, it's if you want, because Steve's looking for shelf space. Follow the Nick Perdomo model of how you do, merchandising. Those are going to stand out, and it's a lifestyle brand. I'd be shocked if maybe they do an initial release with paper bundle. It's a question I got to ask Steve, but yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be another one, another booth added to the list. That's going to be busy, a lot to see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to get into candidates for my company of the show to look for. And the last 2 winners were Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust, United Selected. So they are already off to a very strong start. I have one company there's one company that I think is going to be interesting to see that just keep an eye on them, but it's a little bit of an intangible reason this year why I think they could be the company this year to watch. But yeah, I mean, these 2 companies are off to a great start. Ford's.
Well, I think first of all, that they're gonna have a lot of attention regardless of what they bring.
Yeah, I'm not gonna tease it. I don't know what they're gonna do yet, but it's not like a secret. But there's all eyes are gonna be on Ford's this year and Altadis. Both of those, there's a lot of eyes on both of those companies this year. So the question is, do they bring something to? How do they come back? Do they come back with a bang? Do they come back quietly? That's what I want to see what's gonna happen. If they come back with a bang, watch out is what I'm saying. If Raphael brings a new Monte Cristo or something like that in this year, that's gonna be tough to do. If Ford's does something crazy with the Partagas line, some things worth watching right now to see.
Well, let me ask you this question: if you're those 2 companies and you're committing, you're all right, we're coming back, knowing that obviously there's gonna be a lot of hype on you just being there, wouldn't you take advantage of that and bring some heat? Do you show up to the dance without a date, or do you bring 3?
Right. That's the question that you look at, and right now there's 2 companies out there that are leaders out of the gate. To see, Espinosa was very close last year. They had a lot of limiteds last year. Espinosa.
Yeah, they did.
Fieri's coming back this year, so it's going to be. I know most of their releases are more limited this year, which is why they didn't get it from me last year. Is that all their releases were limited, and I really judge Core Line to give this award out to, right? You gotta have something Core Line to get this honor from me. Limited just won't do it for me unless there's just nothing else. So does Altadis? I mean, I'm sure Altadis has stuff in the pipeline they've been working on. I'm sure Ford's has stuff in the pipeline they're working on. So I think they will have something there. What it is, does it kind of capture my attention or the retailer's attention? More importantly, that's to be seen.
The other one that we haven't really talked about yet, no one's really talked about, but I think it's safe to say we know what's coming. Perdomo's 30th anniversary.
I think he said on Matt's show it's coming.
Well,
the show.
I believe last year at the trade show he said that he wanted to have it there, but because they had delays, they couldn't have it. So he was just, and the cigars were ready, but he didn't have the packaging because of all that stuff. And so he was just going to let them rest.
Yeah. Nick's not going to put out paper bundles with a 30th anniversary cigar.
And when I went to the booth at TPE, Nick wasn't there, but Nelson was there, and I chatted with him, and I tried to get some info out of him, and he wouldn't budge, and he just said, are you coming to PCA? I go, absolutely. He's like, you'll probably find what you're looking for at PCA, and I said, yeah.
Yeah,
so,
I think he said it on How About That Cigar's 200th episode.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's another one worth watching. That's gonna be a huge thing to watch with that.
Because if anything, I mean, look, Perdomo doesn't bring out a lot of stuff often, but when they bring one cigar out, that one cigar gets a lot of attention. I mean, the last time they brought a cigar, the 10th anniversary Maduros and Sungrown, that 10th anniversary Maduro cleaned up. I mean,
oh, it was it's a historic cigar. It's been and I'm looking at some of my decade list right now. I'll tell you right now, the leader for Impact Brand of the decade has to be Perdomo 10th anniversary this year. Right now, I think they are absolutely that was a monster what they did. On top of a monster they had with champagne to go with the and yeah. So I think what they're doing.
When it comes to Perdomo, it's pretty easy to figure out a lot of this information before it's announced. We know there's a 30th anniversary coming. They've admitted it.
Right.
It's probably going to get released in the standard 3-wrapper format that they always use, a Connecticut Shade.
But they do all three at once. They didn't do all three at once for the 20th. They waited on the Connecticut, just so you know.
Okay.
The Connecticut came out a year later, yeah. So I
didn't know that.
I think that's a fair assumption, though. But they may not do all three at once.
Yeah, because, I mean, that's true. And you know what? The one cigar from Perdomo I wish would come back because I miss it, ESV.
Very limited. I mean, I think that Tabacco is it's a great cigar, great line. So I think it's something that will be more limited. I don't think it's gone away. I think it'll come back at some point. But we tried to get some down. We tried to get some down at the Perdomo store in Miami. There were none left. They had some samplers, so we grabbed a couple of the samplers we bought there that had them.
Jay asked a question: How doesn't Almafuerte not get Impact Brand of the decade, or do you mean since 2020?
Since 2020, they were on. I believe Plasencia Almafuerte was on the last decade list of mine. In fact, I will look that up, Jay, on the Impact list. I am positive they were on that. They were high. Plasencia came in. I'm positive they were on that list. I'm not seeing it. Maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, it's since I'm talking for this decade now coming up. 5. They were number 5. So yeah, Plasencia Almafuerte was a top 5 one for me last decade. Yeah, Impact. The ones that beat it out were Davidoff Nicaragua, AJ Fernandez New World, Asylum, and Asylum 13, and Undercrown. Yep.
Wow.
I want to go back to Wagashi for a second. So, my feelings on single store releases.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
We pretty much have a very similar view.
Yeah, I'm probably the most negative on it in the industry. Even though I get they make money for the manufacturers. But let's give Abe the Abe Dojo Saka connection a lot of credit for how they have done this launch. The fact that they have pre-sold the amount of cigars that they did in the amount of time they did is amazing. It is amazing. Why isn't it, and I go back, there's, what I'm saying, the TA and the PCA releases, they don't have that same impact. How does Abe go, and I think he moved over 1,000 of these, right? Am I wrong? He moved. This was so well done, okay? This was so well done. Everyone, all hands on deck were for marketing it. So, I think Dojo handled the consumer end of things. Abe handled the retailer end of things. And Saka handled the manufacturing piece, and all were engaged with the media on this. What a job they did with that. That is absolutely the gold standard for how to do it. Now, I get that everyone can't maybe have an impact like this, but there are other companies that I've seen them come out with exclusive cigars that just shit the bed with this. Pete does a great job with it. So Pete's on another planet. He kind of invented how to
Oh
You know,
yeah.
he's a little different because he's got this strong cult following with that. But other companies, I'm saying, have not done what these guys have done, and I think it's and not only that, Saka's setting the stage for when this has a national release on top of it. This was absolutely a clinical trial gone great on how to do a
first of
single
all,
story release.
first of all, the first thing that comes to mind is you got Steve. Okay, and Steve
Yeah.
is also the cult following.
Yeah.
Anything he makes, he gets people to buy. I mean,
Yep.
so I would say a large. I think it's fair to say a significant, if not a majority of the portion of that is because of Steve and the way he teases stuff and how he is with social media, and he gets things out there, and he's got, he drops like little things, and people are like, oh, what's this? He gets them all corralled together, and then he drops the next beat, and he keeps them fed. He doesn't just drop something in the water and then walk away, and then the hype dies down.
He doesn't just make the cigar and walk away, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Even after the announcement with it, he's all over this thing. Like, and I've seen so many companies like, and this is I see with the TA cigars. Well, we sold them all to the retailers. We're done. Like, that is you give me an answer like that, you've lost me. You've lost me. Don't even go there, okay? Because you're just basically kicking the can away is what you're doing. I made these cigars. I don't want to deal with it anymore. But look at Steve. What he's thinking strategically. This is going to be a national release. He's got a marketing machine in Abe. I mean, what a job these guys have. And again, the dojo community is a very strong community. What a job they did with that. You should if you're a cigar maker and you're doing like a single store release, and maybe you're thinking about it down the line to add to the portfolio, you should be taking copious notes. You should be you should be taking copious notes right now on this.
And remember, this is also a guy who likes to. All this for those who are listening. This is also being said by a guy who loves to. I'm being fair here, Coop. And I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. But this is also coming from a guy who, when people mention Saka, he's been known to say, oh, fanboy.
Well, yeah.
But it's you say it that way, but now you're like praising it, like, oh, the fanboys are out.
But guess what?
I'm just giving you a hard time.
No, but you're right. You're right. But and you mentioned the teaser stuff. I'll be honest. I think I'm more impressed with the job Saka has done after the announcement was made.
Yeah.
Okay. I really have. I've been impressed with that. So, and then he just starts explaining. You get Saka's going to give you a lot of juicy details on it. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't pre-order this cigar. Okay, and it's not. If it's coming national, I can just wait for it at that point, right? Maybe I'll try to hit Abe up with some. Don't get me wrong, but I didn't pre-order it, right? So it's nothing against the cigar or anything. I just typically I'm pretty much done with that. If Abe sends some for review, I'll review them, obviously. The Rare Fusion I'm gonna be reviewing. I have a couple of those. So
that's right, the Aganorsa Leaf.
Yeah, that was an interesting release.
You haven't smoked it, right? Have you smoked it?
I smoked it.
What'd you think?
Be
honest.
Like the first half of the cigar, I didn't like the second half of the cigar.
Okay.
But I smoked it on the air on a show, so that's why I don't want to say the jury's still out on that. That's not a fair way of doing it. I was smoking it. I'm not really thinking about it. I get distracted, so. But it's not. I'm not saying it's a bad cigar either. So like I said, that I gotta give that. How many times have I gone to you, Matt, and you said this cigar is great, and I said it sucks, right? And then I've gone back to it and really gone through like my review side. I said, Matt, you think you're right? I mean, Saka Khan was a great example of that.
And Paladin.
And Paladin, both of those. And Red Anchor is the third.
And Red Anchor.
Red Anchor, I was but in all those cases, they weren't really given the shot that it needed. And that's why I didn't put a review out for them. But in all those cases, but there's other cases that I've been disappointed. So that's why I don't want to pull the thing and say this is a dud either. I mean, I think the whole concept of Corojo Criollo is a little overrated. They're doing with that. It's done all the time. Like blends are done all the time with those two tobaccos. So I don't quite get it. But again, Abe and Terrence are on board and doing a great job marketing that cigar. So maybe the way the tobaccos come together are going to be fantastic. So I want to see it. So
let me ask you this question. Sorry, I got this idea. I got this idea in my head. Now I want to ask you. You know, the last couple of years, I feel like you would agree, Aganorsa has been a little quiet. I know they've done a lot of repackaging and rebranding, which has been big. But do you think that now it's time to see a couple more cigars come out into?
Yeah. But
I feel like it's time.
so they have a little bit of a problem, Aganor. So to be fair to them, they have really, as far as innovation goes, they have done some innovations. The shade grown Corojo, and now the Corojo 2012 varietal.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta give it a little chance here. I'm not saying they were all great out of the gate, but they give them a chance to work with those tobaccos a little more. So, and they've been more limited releases they've done with those too. So, yeah, I think Aganorsa does need to come out with something. They have a few lines that they still need to restore. It sounds like Terrence dropped a hint that the Arsenio line's coming back, which is one of their classic lines, one of the best lines they've had, named for the late Arsenio Ramos.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one that they haven't kind of Aganorsa-sized yet. So I think that's one that's probably going to be coming. So I think that would be great when that's reintroduced to the market. That was an unbelievable blend when it came out. So they have a few more. They have the Secreto de Art is another one that they released, but it has to get repackaged. So they have a few of these out there. And like I said, I think they need to do a little more with the Corojo 2012 before we say it's the next great thing. So they've kind of been some limited releases. So I wasn't a big fan of Cerberus, by the way.
Me either.
That doesn't mean no, I wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of it. So I have a review coming out tomorrow on the HBC 10th anniversary Toro, which uses that tobacco as well. So you'll find out about that. It didn't do bad, but it didn't blow the doors off either. So that's Rainier's. So he's used it. So I think we'll give it a little more time with Aganor. So I think they are doing repackaging, but I think they have done some stuff from an innovation standpoint. It's just been a little more limited right now.
Oh, and just to be clear, that wasn't a knock against Aganorsa. They have been doing some good things,
but they
haven't really made a splash.
Yeah, I mean the shade grown Corojo in 2019 when they introduced that, they came out with 3 lines with that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the lines was really good. The other 2 lines, one was okay and one was bad. So I thought the Guardian of Farm Night Watch was a miss, and they don't have a lot of misses, Aganors, but that was a miss in my book.
Mm-hmm.
I think they've done a great job with the Anniversario line. The Anniversario Corojo is and I love the packaging changes they made on it. I really love the Corojo one on that. So that has become an excellent line for them. So I think they've done a good job. I mean, but I think they have to kind of stabilize the packaging changes too. They've had too many. So I think they had to tweak some of the things like they rebranded the core line as validation line. I think that was a smart move. I think it's going to pay off for them. So
I think
I'm
so
not
too.
Yeah, colors were really nice. And by the way, I'm in the minority. I love the Supreme Leaf colors. I think they pop. I think they stand out great in a humidor. I kind of like it.
They get your attention.
It gets your attention. Yeah, I like it. I kind of like the colors on it. It's pretty cool. So I'm in the minority with that. I like the colors on that.
Hey, how many times on this show have we said packaging is important?
Why is Nick Perdomo waiting on his 30th anniversary? He is not. Like I said, he wants that packaging to be right. So it's very important. Merchandise is a big part of what they do. So absolutely. Like I said, if you're selling something with a retailer online, you could put it in a bundle because you don't have a store to do it with. Is what I'm saying.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yep.
Since the last show, we couldn't meet last week because we were both traveling.
Yep.
But, last weekend, you went down to Miami again.
Yep.
And it sounds like you had one of the best times of your life, to be honest with you, from what I saw.
Oh, it was very good. I had an opportunity. This was non-cigar business. I was at the Formula One for. It wasn't personal either. Go see what I got to see. Was excellent. It's a great event for Miami. And I had some pretty good access, as people saw. I kind of, I actually stayed in Miami till Monday. I had some other business on Monday. So Sunday was the one day I had to do some stuff around Miami, which was nice. But yeah, no, I had a very good time. What a great event for the city of Miami, and the city of Miami did that race really proud. It was a lot of excitement in the city throughout the whole weekend.
I was gonna say,
I didn't go to the actual race, by the way. I only went to qualifying, just so you know.
Oh, okay.
Because again, just so you know, it was non-cigar related. So I had business there. And one day was more than enough for me, and I was very happy. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, yeah. I
yeah.
mean, it seems, they had the Miami race, and I know later this year there's a race in Las Vegas, which I think
And
is
then Austin,
November.
Austin, yeah, and Austin as well.
Oh,
Yeah,
and Austin. Okay.
Austin. It's Austin, then Vegas. Yeah.
When's the
So this
Austin
is
race?
big. I want to say it's in between It's I think maybe the summer or something.
Okay.
And the other thing that I'll just say is, and this I know we're not going to get too much into Formula One here, is there is what is a big thing happening is there is a driver who drives for the Williams team, which is a world renowned team. His
Yep.
name is Logan Sargent. He is an American driver who comes from South Florida, and he's a rookie on the Formula One. He finished last, right? But this is the fact that they have an American driver. I'm telling you, he's a good kid. I didn't meet him personally, but he seems like a good kid, and I think the money will come into his team where he's going to be a more competitive driver because he's got the personality and people love him. So the crowd loved him there. Sad he didn't have the car to qualify is the problem. So he needs you need money. It's the cars. Everything is about the car, and I think that money. But to have an American now, it's exciting in Formula One.
Oh, it is
And he's
for
and
sure.
he's young. It's an exciting. Yeah, it's really exciting. I'm not saying he's going to win the drivers' championship, but he's going to get better. Is what I'm saying.
And who won the Miami race? I don't remember.
It was won by Max Verstappen, who
Oh, that's
started
right.
ninth. Yeah, he started ninth. And he is the best driver in the world right now. And he had the car, and he drove that race from coming from the middle of the pack. Not easy. So very exciting driver. I watched the race on TV because I said I wasn't there. I was only there for qualifying, and he got a bad luck in qualifying because they got red flagged. There was a crash, and he got red flagged.
Hmm.
So he ended up starting. That's why he started ninth. It's not that he ended the car. It's kind of the timing of when you
Poor
do the
timing.
qualifying out there.
Yeah.
It was bad. Yeah, they took a calculated risk that they can get one more qualifier in, and they didn't get it. So when it got red flagged, he didn't get a chance to do the final qualification where I think the car was probably at the level they wanted it to. And obviously he had a hell of a car. So
How did Hamilton do?
Hamilton started actually outside the top 10. He finished, I want to say, in like fifth or sixth. I think sixth he finished. So
I know for a while
and
Hamilton was like the driver in the world.
yeah, it's interesting to see him. It's interesting to see him kind of where he is right now. He's much better than a fifth or sixth place driver. Hamilton finished sixth. His teammate George Russell finished fourth on Mercedes. They're two British drivers. So, yeah, it was interesting to see. I said, I'm just like he had just a bad run also, and he ended up, like I said, the red flag actually didn't hurt him. He was out, like he finished bad because he just had the car didn't do it for him on the track that day. But he drove very well because he finished outside the top 10 in qualifying, but he got to get up to sixth place was still pretty good. And he got some points at least on the race.
Yeah. Very interesting. F1 seems
Yep.
to be getting more and more popular
The city of
in the
Miami
U.S.
really got behind. The city of Miami got behind this race. Everyone was talking Formula One down there. They did a great job. They were just. I stayed at Miami Beach, and I can just tell you, everyone was talking about, even if they weren't at the race, that was being watched. And there were watch parties all over the city, so it was a big deal.
Well, it's exciting to see. It's exciting to
Yep.
see it happening here. I anticipate more and more of it as time goes on. I mean, as long as it's perceived well. But it seems to me like they're off to a good start, and I'm excited to see where it goes. I know we had Charlie Minato from Half Wheel on the show, and we actually got into that. I think it was last year, and I remember him saying like how he's gotten so into Formula One, and he's gotten into NASCAR as well. But he's into Formula One.
Le Mans is his big thing. He likes Le Mans. Yeah.
Yeah, he does too. He likes that. He's. I would say generally most automotive racing in general, I think he is pretty much a big fan of. But yeah, which is one thing I didn't know about him, and I found it very interesting. He's really into that. So yeah, like I said, it's something I see getting a stronger and stronger presence here in the U.S. It's kind of like I think Formula One's always been kind of like soccer. Like we have fans here, but it's not like it is in the rest of the world. And I think you're starting to see more interest in Formula One in the U.S., which I think is good.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I definitely agree with you on that. It is becoming, it's definitely, and I think, like I said, having an American driver is going to help.
Oh,
now you got 3 races in the U.S. because that money is going to come to this. This kid is so likable, and Williams is a team that they if they get the money, they can invest in the cars. It's going to be very, very exciting to see.
Well, I'm glad you had a great time. It sounds like a hell of an experience. And you get to go to Miami again, which I know in your book, no matter what the reason is, just getting to go to Miami is a treat for you.
Love that city. Love that city.
Magic City, right?
The magic. It really is the magic city. I actually stayed on Miami Beach for the first time in my life. I'd never stayed at Miami Beach.
Oh, see, there's another for you, yeah.
It's a different animal, Miami Beach. I always say Miami Lakes, which is a little more secluded and relaxed. Miami Beach, I wouldn't say is my scene by any means, but for a young guy like you, I think you'd enjoy it. So
okay,
yeah,
okay.
If I was single, if I was single, that's all I'll say. Yeah, it was.
What are you saying? If you were single and you were on Miami Beach, you'd be,
I'd be going to Miami Beach a lot. Trust me.
You'd be hitting them away with a stick. They'd be lining up for you.
I don't know. They'd be hitting me away probably, but like it's funny. I'm like 55. I felt like a dirty old man. It's like
wow.
I'm just way too old for this shit.
Wow. I can't believe you would describe yourself like that.
I wasn't the dirty old man. I could help. I got a daughter who's older than some of these people. So.
Very eye-opening. Very eye-opening.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you had a good time.
Yeah.
I think that's going to do it for our show tonight. There was a lot to cover, and Mitchell wasn't with us, unfortunately, but he should be back for the next one.
Yeah, no, good. We'll get the Boy Wonder back on, and
Boy Wonder, I like that.
Boy Wonder, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
We'll get him back for the next one, but that's going to do it for us. We'll be back same time, same place in a couple of weeks on our normal schedule. Yep. Sorry, I have something in my eye.
Yep.
It's driving me nuts. Great show. Coop, who do you have coming up on the show this week?
We probably are taking this week off. So we there's a lot of decisions going into that. So we may be taking this week. We have a jukebox show on Monday that we just recorded on last tracks on albums. So that will happen on Monday, but we may be taking prime time off this week. Just so you know.
Oh, okay.
We have a lot. We have a lot coming up with PCA. So we have a lot of shows that are booked, and I'll announce those very soon. What some of the guests will have with that. But yeah, there's a chance we still may do the show. That's why I'm going to make the call on Monday on that.
It sounds like
that's basically saying I don't have a guest yet, but there's other stuff. There's other factors going on why I may not be able to book a guest for me. So that's part of that. Yeah.
Okay. That's good.
I don't want to commit to a guest if I can't do the show. So
yeah, no,
that's why I haven't tried to book a guest yet. Who do you got coming on?
We have Jeff and Chris from Amendola coming on this week to talk about the new.
Those guys, love those guys.
The West Side Story.
What a great story from them. I always love having those guys on the show, and that's a cool project when you guys get into that with them. They're good dudes. I love those guys. I'll have to tune in for that for sure.
Very excited. Yeah, it's always
yeah.
a great time when they come. So
yeah, they're great. They're just great people as well. And Chris is now living in Miami. I found out. So
yes.
He
Yeah.
has seen the light. So, yep.
He's seen the light. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's a New York guy. Always was New York. He was down here for a while by me, and now he's down. He's gone all down
What is
there,
it with
so,
you New Yorkers that find Miami so fascinating?
Warm.
Warm.
But I love North Carolina. Don't get me wrong; it's a wonderful place I live in. So part of me I like visiting Miami. I don't know if I'd like living there.
I was just
wouldn't
gonna
live
say,
in
would
Miami.
you live in Miami?
No, I'd probably live up by Palm Beach if I did it. So
Yeah.
I think Miami. Like I said, Miami Beach is not my scene. So
Well, you never know. It could be.
leave that for Alan Rubin.
Oh, whoa, okay. Alan Rubin. Alan Rubin's a Vegas guy, though, so I don't know.
But he's a Vegas guy, yeah.
Although it's a
Miami's a
very-
better city than. I will say Miami's still a better city than Vegas. Anytime, I'll take Miami any day of the week over Vegas.
Yeah.
But it's expensive too. Miami's gotten very expensive.
They're both
so.
expensive.
Yeah, they both have. Yeah.
Much different climates.
Yep.
I mean, they're both warm
Yep.
to an extent, but much different
Yep.
climates as well.
Yep.
All right, guys, that's going to do it. Don't forget to like and subscribe everywhere you can get your podcasts, as well as on our YouTube channel and all of our social media accounts. Head over to smokingtobacco.com today for more news, reviews, and other happenings and tidbits from the cigar industry. And with that, we'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.